And we're going to ask our Vice Chair to lead us in prayer, and we'll pledge allegiance to the flag.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity and responsibility to come and be servants. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity for our citizens to come and participate. Lord, we just pray today that in all that we do and all that we say, that it would not only help our county, but it would glorify you. So, Father, we thank you for your presence today, and we just ask your blessing upon our meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll call our meeting to order. The first item on the agenda will be the approval of our minutes. You have your minutes in front of you from February 6th. And what is the pleasure of the board? All right, it's been motioned that the minutes be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you. The next item will be our agenda adjustments. And we have two adjustments. Under item 5, 4B, we want to add tax report. It'll be finance report and tax report. And also under item 8, 11, we want to add ClearScape's contract authorization. 11. You can make that A or B. All right, if there are no other adjustments, we'll call for the motion to accept the agenda as modified.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, the next item on our agenda will be to hear from our delegations. First will be the unannounced delegations in the form of citizens' comments. And the first on our list will be Cynthia Boone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like I said, my name is Cynthia Boone, and I am here. I come before the Commission today with the concern of the Gates County Community Center. I have a son who is at the high school, and he is a athlete. He's been participating in sports since he's been about 5 or 6 years old, along with a lot of his friends and classmates. On February the 18th, President's Day, which was the day out of school for them and the teachers' work day, they had basketball practice at 3 o'clock. And because the Gates County is not a metropolitan area, there's no public transportation to help them get around. They catches the ride the best way they can to get where they can. They were able to get a ride to the community center and arrived at 1:45. They was told by a worker at the community center that they couldn't come in. Practice started at 3 o'clock, but they was told they couldn't come in. It was cold that day too. But there was 3 other young men from their basketball team in the community center. My son asked why can't they go in there with those young men, and they was told that those young men called ahead of time and asked could they come in. So then my son calls me. I'm at work. I work at Old Dominion University. He calls me. I told him to find a coach. They called their coach, was happened to be at the high school. The coach told them to come over there with him. He'll take care of it later on. I called to the community center to find out why were they not allowed in there. First, she told me I can't be dropping my child off at the community center. I explained to her I did not drop my child off, that I was at work. They trying to get out to the basketball practice the best way they could, which they caught a ride with the individual who was on their way to work, so they got there early, and I explained that to her. I asked her, I said, my son told me that there was individuals out there already. She told me that those individuals called there ahead of time to get permission to come out there. I said, okay. I said, but I looked on the website. I said, there's nothing up there stating that they had to call ahead of time. She said he should have called and she would have told him. And I told her, I said, you all need to start making up rules as you go. This is not the first time something like this happened. Last spring at the baseball practice, my son and some other his teammates went to the community center and they were outside playing basketball in the outside courts. A staff member of the community center came out there, removed the rims without saying anything to the young men. So the young men, they said that they thought about it, so they said, let's go inside. As they was going into the community center, Lulu came to the doors, locked them in front of them, and would not allow them in. I called Lulu the next day asking her why. She tells me that they shouldn't be loitering. And I asked, how do you loiter at a community center? This, like I said, this is not the first time. Just last night, my son, a handful of young men, first of all, from our football team, were selected to participate in the combine. So they've been doing weightlifting and training after school. So some of the young men, they have to wait for their parents to come pick them up. So after weightlifting, they went to the community center, and one of the staff members told them, you can't be coming here hanging out. If you do this again, I'm going to call the sheriff. Our young student athletes have enough to worry about, and then where they're going to stand and wait for their parents to pick them up after practice. We all know that roughly 90% of the working people in Gates County work outside of the county. So it's going to take us a while to leave work. When I work in Norfolk at 5 o'clock, I got to come through traffic. It's going to take us a little while to get to be able to pick our children up. And these aren't just young men who are out there gang-banging, causing trouble, or doing other things. These are student athletes. I mean, these young men and other students get up extra early in the morning to go to weightlifting and training, which is from 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning. Then they take showers to go to class. After school, they go back to training so that when they get on the football field, basketball courts, or baseball field, they could be the best that they can be. These are young men who are also excelling in not just in athletes, but in their classroom, because we know they have to keep a certain grade point average. A couple of weeks ago, our junior varsity basketball team from the high school, along with our girls basketball team, won the trophies for their division and brought them back to Gates County. When they step out there, they have Gates County across their chest because they're representing Gates County. So they deserve more from Gates County than threats, disrespect, and having doors shut and locked in their faces. Like I said, they are not out there causing trouble. They're just looking for a place after practice that they can wait for their parents to come pick them up. I just believe that the community center, being a tax-funded facilities, should provide more for our young student athletes than what they're doing. And they need to get some governance, some rules, get some vision statements, something set up to help run these facilities better than what they're doing and just tossing our students out to the side. I realize this can't be addressed at this time, but I would like it to be placed on the agenda. I would like to take part in doing everything that I can to help the young people in the Gates County, especially those who are trying to do something. And I appreciate y'all listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm on Gates now. Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, I believe you're on the board for the community center, is that right? Are you on the board?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
I might be.
All right. Well, certainly thank you for that comment. Next is Mr. Earl Roundtree.
Hello, I'm Earl
Morning.
Roundtree.
Morning.
I stopped at a business this morning and went in to pay a bill, And the lady looked at me and she said, "You must be going to a funeral." And I said, "Well, it's interesting that you commented on that because the reason that I wore my funeral suit today, I figured that probably none of you in here would go to my funeral. So I felt like that if I come here today dressed in my funeral suit, that you would see exactly how I look laid out." And I think the left hand is supposed to be over the right hand. So I got on my funeral suit so that y'all would know where I'm going to look. I know, Chairman Jordan, you've got a busy schedule. I do have two things that I probably might not even go to the second one. But number one, I wanted to straighten the record out. I won't say straighten it out. Maybe straighten it out in front of the cameras for history. There's not anything controversial. I tell everybody that I see that it's a new day now. We got a new county manager. I don't believe in digging up bones, Jack. We go forward, but at the same time, well, sometimes these things affect me, and I want history to reflect exactly what happened. And thanks to the camera and thanks to the minutes, let me say what it is. It has to do with the intersections on the new highway that we're having. And I started getting some phone calls. Well, one of the first things someone said to me says, "Well, I understand back when this thing started that some kind of light delegation went to Raleigh, but they couldn't get anything done." Well, this is what I'm going to run through this whole story, if I can, Mr. Chairman, for the record. Kenny Jernigan and I were standing out here in the hall, and we can't remember when, I think it was 2010, looking at the map, and Kenny pointed out to me this strange intersection that they had. And we both, I think, agreed that this looked kind of weird and somewhat stupid. And so when the word got around, I felt like, and I don't know why this had to be, but I had been on the Board of Transportation. I spent 6 years on the Board of Agriculture, and I wasn't being arrogant about this, but I also had what I considered a personal friend who was the chief of staff of the governor, Britt Cobb, who told me that I had done Britt a favor one time, and he's the kind of guy that's a nice guy, and he never forgot it. So I thought maybe that we could get something done. I made a terrible mistake because I should have known better, because I've been in this business, I told y'all last year, 60 years. And I know you're dealing with fragile egos and power struggles, but I didn't think about these things. I just thought it was something we were going to do for the county and the people in Scratch Hall in particular that live closest to the intersections. I didn't go through the proper procedure, I guess, but I did go call Kenny, and him and I would talk in about 7:30 in the morning. I'd usually get him. That's about the time we usually talk, isn't it? But anyway, I said, I think we might be able to do something about this thing. So Kenny and Jerry, we had a meeting, and you got to understand this. If you do not understand it, federal government, state government, local government, there's always two areas of government. One is the political government, and the other is the bureaucracy. They like to call themselves the professionals. I tend to call them the bureaucracy. But the professionals sound better. But the highway department is run by a group of professionals, but the Secretary of Transportation is appointed by the governor, and therefore they are the ones that make the final decisions. Well, I figured we were in good shape. I had talked to Britt Cobb about this. He said, well, go ahead and meet with your division engineer, Jerry Jennings, express your concern, come up here and talk to Gene, with Eugene, but we call him Gene Conte, the Secretary of Transportation, and let me know how things were going. So Kenny Jernigan, T.C. Vaughn, and I went to Raleigh and met with Gene Conte. Well, when we got back home, Britt Cobb called me up and said, Earl, how'd things go? And I said, well, we didn't get any commitment. I said, we didn't get anything but a smile and a handshake. And he said, well, keep me posted. He said, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Conte next week at a meeting and let me know how things will go. So this is where we went. We had the second meeting with the division engineer, which Kenny, of course, was there, and the rest of the commissioners. We didn't get anything. And Kenny knows very well what I'm talking about, I think. All they did was come down here and try to tell us it was a good idea. They had no intentions whatsoever of changing it. Well, I didn't know until that day that legs had been chopped off, my throat had been slashed, and I had been thrown under the bus because the former county chairman and the former manager and the former county chairman had already made their mind up, and Cal Bryant put it in the newspaper. And I think if you had to find the archives, they came right out and says, well, we backed the state on this. So, Kenny, if that ain't getting thrown under the bus. Well, Brett Cobb called me back and he said, do you want to pursue this? I said, well, no. I said, I know how government works. I know how the governor is. The governor is not going to go against the county commissioners unless it's something really dramatic. But you are the people, if you want something from the governor's office, you just vote 5-0 and ask for it, because that's what you are the closest to the people. And we didn't have that. I told Mr. Cobb, I said, just forget it, and we won't worry about it. I said, it's a done deal, and don't worry about it. And I'm saying this for the record because Kenny Jernigan and I and the good people over there in Scratch Hall, we're working on this. I called TC, I think, and Billy Felton, some more, and I said, look, I can't do anything about it. This is what's happened. And I wasn't going to put the governor in any kind of position where we didn't have the support of the commissioners. And I just want the record to know this because I had several phone calls that now that the road is being built, all of a sudden it's come back up. Good luck to you. I am not going to do anything to try to interfere with this. I support any changes. Somebody came up with about an overpass. There's not going to be no overpass. The state of North Carolina don't do overpasses anymore unless it's a major interstate highway. Even limited access highways are not going to do it. I still, Kenny, do not like this thing. I don't think it's practical the way they've got it done. And the other thing, people, I understand, petition about a stoplight. And the problem with the stoplight is that it's interfering with exactly what they wanted to do, or we wanted to do, and that was to get those trucks from Hampton Roads Harbor down the highway quick, and they didn't want a bunch of trucks having to stop at stoplights. So, you know, that's the way it is. That concludes what I had to say. I was going to say a little bit about some economic development here in the county that goes back for 40 years, but you got a long agenda today, and this is things that we can talk about later. And I was watching the Duke basketball game last night, and I guess one of the commissioners, I don't watch Duke basketball because I'm sitting there in the second half, and Duke hadn't really pulled away yet, and this screen pops up here, and I'm getting a phone call, and I took it. Mr. Hoare I've taken 2 phone calls within a week, and both of them were politicians. And one of them was Representative Bob Steinberg, and the other one was John M. Hoare. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. All right, our next citizen is Mr. J. Harrell.
Good morning,
Morning.
Commissioners, Diane, County Manager Mendenhall, and fellow citizens of Gates County. I'm going to make this very brief. The comments that I'm going to make are meant totally to be of a positive, constructive nature. Diane does a wonderful job. She handles an awful lot, and I've communicated this to her. She handles a lot of communication in and out. and I refer to it as the Gazinzas and the Gazoutsas, and that's on top of taking care of all her other job duties. But I'm referring back to the night meeting, January 23rd, Commissioners' meeting, and the minutes state J.E. Harold Gates commends the board for taking action and moving forward, and that is absolutely accurate. But it went just a tad further, and I want to clarify that, and the reason I'm stating this is simply to clarify it. I did commend the board for moving forward and taking action on specifically action taken during the year 2012. During year 2012, there was data that was collected, gathered, and assembled, and the Board of Commissioners studied it. They took their time at it, methodically worked through it, and that action resulted in the movement of what I think significant monies from the county debt to pay down the county debt, which resulted in less county interest money paid out, which is very interesting to me because that lessens the tax burden on the commissioners, and you and myself. We're all citizens of Gates County. And I think the environment is especially ripe right now, and anytime you look at the news, it indicates that the environment's right for spending money wisely, not being wasteful, and doing the right thing. And that's what I commended the county commissioners on, taking that action. And I just wanted to clarify that, and thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you, J.E. All right, that concludes our citizens' comments. The next item on the agenda will be our announced delegation, Dr. Candy Diedemeyer of the College of the Albemarle.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is my pleasure to be before you this morning, and I bring you hopefully lots of good news and great things happening at the College of the Albemarle. And I gave you a booklet there with some data in it and what tends to be a PowerPoint, but we had some technical and communication difficulties, so I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. It actually probably go very well that way. But if I could, Mr. Chairman, let me thank you for having me this morning, and to the rest of the commissioners for your support for the college and for what we do for the citizens of northeastern North Carolina. I do have some folks here this morning I'd like to just recognize real quick, and that would be first our chairman of the board, Fletcher Willie, who was actually born and raised in Gates County. So Fletcher is here this morning, as well as your representative to the board, Graham Twine, is with us this morning as well. And two of our vice presidents, Suzanne Rohrbaugh, who's over workforce development and continuing education, and Stephen Woodburn, who's our VP of student success and enrollment management. So, well, good morning. And as I said, it is my privilege to be before you this morning and kind of give you your annual update about what's happening at the college. And we're going to just flip real quick to the first page and tell you that you are part of an exceptional institution. In the state of North Carolina, there are 58 community colleges, of which COA is one. We serve the most counties of any of the community colleges in the state. We serve 7. So we may not be the largest, but I assure you we cover the most counties and cover the biggest landmass of 1,875 square miles. And I travel that often, and so it is a lot of citizens that we try to serve. And the system puts together some measurements by which the colleges are kind of measured on an annual basis. And the college this past year was one of 16 that reached the exceptional status. And so we are very proud of that. And I give you this morning that is not by my work, I promise you. I am privileged to help take care of a wonderful faculty and staff who are very passionate about what they do for our students, and that is always around teaching and learning. For those of you who may be keeping up with the headlines, we are advancing our 4th campus, which will be opening in the fall. That is in Currituck, and that is around the aviation cluster that is obviously happening in North Carolina. That will be our regional aviation and technical training center. We will also, because of the job skills and the training skills that go with that, be moving our machining lab from our Elizabeth City campus and architectural design because of some of the CAD components and design. And we will also be starting a mechanical engineering program to go along with that. So we are excited about that center. It is a 40,000 square foot, very innovative platform. And so we will be sending all of you a great invitation to come and celebrate that with us, and hope that your students will access that as well, because we know that those jobs for many of the companies that are already on the ground in our region, and hopefully that will be coming soon, those will be jobs that we want our citizens to be able to reach. So I always like, when I go around annually to the commissioning boards, try to tell a success story, because nobody really tells our story better than a student. And we strive every day to do things in a very excellent way at the college. How can we do it better today than we did it yesterday? Because we truly believe that our citizens, those from Gates, Pasquotank, Currituck, wherever, they really deserve our very best. And so I must tell you, when I get up every morning, I know I'm privileged to serve as president, but I hit the ground running knowing that we can do it better, and just very excited about how do we vision that and make it happen. So this morning, I brought a student with us who is a Gates County resident. Hopefully she is known to all of you. Her name is Tammy Lassiter, and she's going to come up and tell you a little bit about her experience with the college. And I must tell you, I generally let somebody else pick the student. That way it's not the president's handpick. You know how that goes. And I don't tell them what to say, so I have no idea what she's going to share. But usually I'm very thrilled. But let me tell you a little bit about Tammy, what I know so far, and that is she graduated from the college in 2003, a very high-achieving student with a grade point average over 3.0. And she graduated from probably one of our most academically rigorous programs, which is our associate degree in nursing. And she's going to tell you about her journey over the last 10 plus years, I'm sure. But we are very proud of her, and I think you will be too. And then I'm going to come back up very quickly and just share some statistics with you and give my thanks, and I'll answer any questions that you may have of me. So Tammy, would you come up and tell your story a little bit? And while she's coming, let me tell you, we just finished a paramedic class, which is our highest EMS training that we do at the college. We had 6 students finish that, which is pretty good, actually, for that kind of training. 5 of those students, we held that right here in Gates County over at your center. 5 of those students have already tested, and they passed 100%. We don't have any anticipation of why the 6th student won't take that and pass as well. It's a very hard exam to pass, and so we're very excited about that as well, and that we've gotten those students through that level, because we certainly know in this area we need well-trained paramedics. So I introduce you to Tammy Lassiter.
Good morning.
Morning.
It is my absolute privilege to speak on behalf of College of the Albemarle as a student, a graduate student of their fine institution, as well as to speak to our board this morning. Just to give a little personal history, I'm a 1983 graduate of Gates County High School. Immediately after I graduated, I married my high school sweetheart, who was also a Gates County graduate of 1979. We moved to Greenville, North Carolina, where my husband was pursuing his master's degree, and lo and behold, at the end of 1984, we had our first child. He was born with some medical needs. He was born blind and required a very significant amount of medical treatment and surgeries over a long course of time. After my husband graduated, we moved to Newport News, Virginia, where he got his first degree, or his first role of employment as a nuclear physicist with Jefferson Laboratories. We lived there for about 3 years, and he hated city life, so we moved back to Gates County. And we're proud to call that home since then. I worked, my children, we had a second child. She was born very healthy and wonderful. And by the time my children were of school age, I took a job with a local mom and pop general store in Sunbury, North Carolina. I worked there for 7 years. And they went out of business. They closed their doors. By now, my children were well on their way through school. They weren't needing mom to volunteer at the schools much anymore. They didn't want me to volunteer as much in the schools anymore. I was out of work, and I needed to find what my options were. Here I was approaching my 30s. At that time, I thought that was just wretched. And so I discovered that there were opportunities for displaced workers. And so there began my relationship with College of the Albemarle. I started my tour with College of the Albemarle. My first semester was undecided as to how I would take my coursework. So I focused on basic curriculum courses and then decided on, and at the time, my dream had always been to become a nurse. But at 30 years old, I really felt like I would be the oldest student in the ADN program, and it probably just wasn't in the cards for me. But something told me to kind of throw my hat in the ring. After my first semester, I was doing quite well, decided on going through the medical office technology program, and I did that for the next semester, and then was privileged enough to become a member of Phi Theta Kappa, their honor society. After the first year, I got a letter from the Associate's Degree Nursing Program telling me that I had been accepted for the Associate's Degree Nursing Program, but I still hadn't built my confidence that I wouldn't be the oldest person in there, and so I declined that. And very soon thereafter, I applied for the college co-op program and applied for my first position through the co-op program, which was a local business in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. It was a human services agency that provided mental health services and services for the developmentally disabled. They interviewed me for a medical administration position part-time, and I worked there for the period of about a year. In the interim, the college had also asked if I would be interested in interviewing for a part-time position to work with who was the president then, Lynn Bunch, to revamp the college's policy and procedure manual. So I did that, and it was enjoyable work. I enjoyed the team that I was working for, and throughout this period of time, I was feeling a sense of welcoming and nurturing throughout the college. The college, through the medical terminology or medical technology program, was extremely nurturing. All of their business component classes were very up-to-date and relevant for the time, and so that prepared me for the jobs that I was currently taking on. So there I was working as a co-op student as well as with the college for a short period of time, and lo and behold, I get accepted again to the Associate's Degree Nursing program. Now I have only 2 courses left to complete my associate's degree in medical office technology. So what am I going to do? I felt like this was truly a gift. This was a dream. And at that point, the college had really proven to me just how supportive they were, that they were training me to be relevant as soon as I hit the field. And so why not? Let's give it a try. And so I accepted the opportunity to go into the Associate Degree Nursing program. And the first semester was kind of a boot camp, per se, to prepare us for our second semester and every semester thereafter as a nursing student to then do our clinicals. We did clinicals with Albemarle Hospital, Chowan Hospital, Norfolk Sentara Hospital, CHKD, and other types of clinical settings such as home health agencies as well. It was nothing for us to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go to our clinical assignments for that day and then come back that evening and go to class. So it was a very rigorous program, and one that I always knew from the day one when I stepped foot on that college campus that this was a very prestigious program and one that was very difficult to get in. When I applied for the program, hundreds of students applied for acceptance into the Associate Degree Nursing program. As a student, they were accepting 20 per year. It was a tough 2 years. I still had school-age children at home. The course required a 3.0, for you to keep a 3.0 GPA. A 2.9 meant your dismissal from the program, and any bad clinical day, period, would dismiss you from the program. So it was very, very demanding. And I'm proud to say that I made it through there. I took my NCLEX immediately thereafter and passed it with flying colors. I immediately went to work with Albemarle Hospital, where I worked there for 2 years, building my foundation and expanding on my skill sets. After that, I was working nights, and boy, did I really want to go to days or something. So I would pray at night, Lord, if there's an opportunity to get me on a regular job, day working job, I would really appreciate it. Lo and behold, I received a call from the co-op employer that I had worked with prior to. They had heard that I had received my degree at Florida Nursing, and they were interested in me coming and opening up a branch as a nurse manager and to start a business from the ground up. I did that for 2 years, and I grew the business to 60 clients doing home care services for that agency. And they were bought out or acquired by a national human services agency who did various types of human services, including the mental health MRDD services, pharmaceutical services, you name it, the gamut. If it had anything to do with human services, they did it, including home care, private duty nursing, so on and so forth. I interviewed for a position with them for executive director, which gave me the opportunity to work across the state, direct offices across the state of North Carolina. I accepted the position, and that position, my salary at that point was in the mid-$70,000 range. I don't think that's bad for someone who earned an associate's degree from our local college. I think that's pretty darn good. Through that position, I managed 13 branches across the state of North Carolina. I traveled across the United States doing QA/QI. I managed millions of dollars in revenue, and as hard as it is to balance budgets. And I did that for 8 years until parents started aging and my health started declining. So I volunteered and out at that point, and am currently working with a local home health agency where I have done hospice case management as well as home health float nursing. And that gives me the opportunity to be home now and supporting my family and their health needs. It gives me the opportunity to have that background and support with my family as they're dealing with all of the ever-changing issues with their medical care, including insurance and everything else. What has this done for me? Throughout my career, what my experience with College of the Albemarle and my position as executive director, I have hired many of their students, many of their graduates, both on the nursing level and in the medical technology field, as well as business. They're CNAs, and they are residents of Gates County and the surrounding areas. 3 of my operations were local, one in Ahoskie, one in Edenton, and one in Elizabeth City. And I'm glad to say that I hired the best because they were graduates of College of the Albemarle. Today, my training still is present at College of the Albemarle. My local employer uses that facility with up-to-date clinical laboratories for me to go in and update my skills that's required for me as a nurse to do. So they've been a pivotal point in my career from the very beginning. I started off as a mother and a housewife, and have built my career up, and College of the Albemarle is a pivotal point in that. And I really just appreciate the time of you listening to my story. There are many more in this county just like mine, and much more impressive than mine as well. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Well, how do you follow that? So I bring to you a success story, but as she said, she has been pivotal. I heard her use that word a couple times in making sure that where she came from and the other graduates following behind her had opportunities as well. And so many of those are your citizens. The information that you have before you, I'm going to go through pretty quickly, just to kind of tell you how your students and those of your residents who are coming from your county fit into the overall picture at COA. We have curriculum programs, of which ADN is one, and many, many others, as you probably well know. And then we have a couple of other pieces of what we do. One is basic skills and transitional studies. For those of you who might understand the old language of basic skills, folks who haven't finished their GED or adult high school diplomas. And then much of the workforce training that we do on the continuing education side of the house. The first page you have there tells you that 152 of your residents of almost 4,000 students participated. For a county such as yours, that's pretty good. And it kind of breaks down demographically who those citizens are. It tells you by program what their interests were. The majority of them are looking to get a degree and obviously advance to a four-year college and go on, or go into some type of business or in public service, probably in basic law enforcement training. And then the high school enrollment are those students, if you'll flip to the page that talks about high school enrollment, those are students who may be taking advantage of courses while they're already in high school, and I know some of our campuses are a little bit more distant, so those numbers are a little lower than I'd like, but we have had 2 superintendent summits in the last 3 months, and all of the superintendents in the region were there, as well as your new superintendent, and so I'm very encouraged that we have some new pathways that your students will be able to take advantage of. In the workforce development side, again, another 150 plus of your residents participating in coursework there. And a number you may be interested in terms of basic skills and transitional studies, again, students who need to finish that general high school diploma. We had about 90 of your residents go through that program last year to try to finish that credential. We also offer many things through our small business center, and there is a listing here for you to understand what's coming to Gates County. There will be some workshops on how to start a business, how to own a business, and really what a business plan is, and then some finance and accounting and cash flow, so that those folks who are able to launch a new business, perhaps hopefully in Gates County, will be able to manage those once they're up and running. Many of our students could not come through our door and be successful if it were not for financial aid. And we give out millions of dollars every year in federal financial aid, as well as about $130,000 in private scholarships that flow through our foundation, thankfully to the residents who are so generous to our foundation. We had 63 of your students who came to our college received 97 financial aid awards. So many times a student will get multiple awards in order to help them be successful in completing their program. Those 63 students received over $220,000. And that is based on need. Financial aid is generally based on what your family contribution can be. And so obviously your citizens needed some help, and we were there to be able to help them access that so that they could be very successful in fulfilling their dreams. The last thing I want to say to you is, we know that you have voluntarily supported the college for many, many years. Last year you gave the college $11,000 to help manage our operation, which is a very large operation, as I said, about to be 4 campuses, and we are very appreciative of that. We don't ever want you to think we have forgotten you. That's why we bring someone like Tammy to help you know that we're still in touch. We know what we're doing, and we want you to feel as this is a huge investment for your residents as well as for the region. Again, I'm very privileged to serve in this role, very passionate about what we do. I'm thrilled every day that we are touted as an exceptional institution, but again, that's based on what we do with faculty and staff and in the teaching and learning process. It's great when the state tells you that you're exceptional, but here's how you know when you're really exceptional. You bring someone like Tammy Lassiter who can tell their story and you not know what they're going to say, and she tells you how it changed the fabric of her family and how that training is still with her today. And that when this season ends for her, in terms of aging parents, those skills are still there. And that she has helped change the fabric of other people's family. And that's what gets you up every day and know that you've been called to do the right things. And so I appreciate your time this morning and to be before you to give you your report. And hopefully you're proud of what we're doing. And Mr. Chairman, we're proud that Gates is in our service area.
We thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much.
Meyer. And we thank you for all that you do. All right. And congratulations to our resident, Mrs. Lassiter. We want to congratulate you on the achievements that you've made as well. Thank you. Next item on the agenda will be our administrative reports. The first report will be from our county manager, Mr. John Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am pleased to present to you our February 2013 County Manager's Report covering the varying administrative, operational, and project management activities of the county. I will give you a highlight that we are in the budget season. We have conducted several budget work sessions as well as a staff budget retreat, and we look forward to our next meeting, which is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We also have a number of things that you'll find under administrative reports, including the finance report, a template for the future personnel report, as well as the departmental reports, correspondence, articles of interest, and the county calendar. Be pleased to answer any questions at this time.
All right. Any questions for the county manager? If not, we will move to our financial report from our finance director. She's not here today. All right, we'll have our tax report from our tax collector in place of Ms. McGinnis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you would look in your packet at the tax collector's report first, please. A few things that I would note on that report. We are, if you'll look at the bottom lines under prepayment line, we are beginning to get a lot of prepayments on the 2013 taxes from our taxpayers. A little further down, you'll see that we had a sizable amount to Zacchaeus Legal Services for their fees this month. And I will say that is a result of our collections because of the work that they're doing for us at the tax office. Debt set-off payments, which are the payments that we receive from the lottery winnings or refunds from people's state income tax, and that we got a good amount on that this month. We do have some refunds from that, so the net effect is about $9,500 that we actually were able to keep of that this month. And as you can see, the next line under official payments, a lot of people are using the online system and the 800 number to make those payments. Under the percentages for collections, you will note that we are about 1% over what we were in collections last year this time. I'm afraid that margin may narrow a little bit as we approach June 30th, but we're going to try to keep that up as high as we can. Did anyone have any questions about any of the items on the report?
When we still working on those budget numbers so I can calculate the total percent.
Okay.
I have a question about the debt set-off payments.
Yes, sir.
You alluded to lottery proceeds.
Yes, sir.
Of that number, $10,239, 100% of that lottery at this time? No.
Most of that is from income tax refunds. We do have, when I review the refunds today, we do have one item on the refunds that was from lottery winnings of $112.07. So most of it is normally income tax refunds.
Okay.
So, any other questions?
Is there any way that we can determine what Zacchaeus actually brought in? I know we have the fees that we paid him this month, but can we determine what was a result of their actions like we do, what is it, Travis Ellis?
Yes, sir, we certainly can. I will be glad to email you a spreadsheet that I keep on all the payments that come in each month I do it daily, any payments we receive, and I'll send that to all of you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else? All right. We thank you so much.
Well, we do have a couple of other items. In your packet, Ms. McGinnis just asked me to mention the two items she had in the packet under the monthly report for tax department. She did ask me to convey that if you do have any questions about these, if you would just contact her. She will be back in the office in the morning. She is yesterday and today in a tag and tax workshop for the new system.
Okay, here we go. Got a paper shuffle up here. All right. Okay.
Okay. On the monthly report for the tax department that was in your initial packet, she just mentioned in that the listing of our personal properties in preparation of our 2013 bills. We do have County Tax Services Incorporated doing an audit of our business personal property at this time. We are in training for the new tag and tax system. One of our employees has already completed that and says it's a good user-friendly system, and it should work out very well. We are working with Attorney Travis Ellis and Zacchaeus Legal Services to make sure that we have an up-to-date report for you from both of them in the April packet. And I will also send you that information as to what we have collected on payments through Zacchaeus Legal Services. And then on the taxes will be advertised in the next couple of weeks. After that date of publication, we will be sending letters to all of our taxpayers that are 2 years or more delinquent, giving them 15 days to bring that current or to contact us for a payment plan. After that point, we would be sending those, if not paid or on a payment plan, to Zacchaeus Legal Services for foreclosure. The other item that she had in your packet was the dates for the Board of Equalization and Review, where she's just stated the statute and asked for your consideration the dates, opening that date on Monday, April 29th through May 20th, and just asking you to consider what dates you would like to set up for those meetings.
Okay, we probably want to take a look at that and determine it at our night meeting. Diane, would you put that on our night meeting, and we'll... Now, we don't... How many times do we have to meet? I think it's... We can kind of adjust that to how many requests we have to come before the board. So we may only have to meet once each week through that time period. Okay, so we can take a look at that in the night meeting.
Yes, sir. I did see it was under consideration later in today's meeting, so she just asked me to tell you if you needed me to come back or whenever you were doing the consideration for that, she'd be glad to talk with you. She just couldn't be here today.
Okay.
Any questions about any of those items? We do have 2 requests for refunds today for your consideration. The first one is in the amount of $112.07. And this is the funds that were from the lottery winnings. This taxpayer had no other taxes due, and we're just asking for your approval for that refund.
I have a question. So this gentleman won some money at the lottery. And the lottery commission checks with his county of residence to see if he owes any taxes. Is that the way that starts?
They check with the system. We actually are set up with what's called five-star computing, and once a year, at the end of each year, we put in all delinquent accounts that come under certain criteria. Then the following year, if there are any monies that come from the state to a taxpayer in our county, they look at that and decide how much should come to our county tax department. As we receive funds, and as funds, if a taxpayer pays on that account, daily we take that amount out of that account so that the state will not look at it to send us a refund, so we don't have to refund the taxpayer. However, a lot of times after they already have it in their system and they're going to send us funds, the taxpayer has already paid it, and those dates cross.
Right, so they paid the total.
Yes.
All right. Gwen, let me ask you something about this. Did this occur because the winnings were greater than $600, which would automatically be a 1099? How do they actually know? I mean, if I got a lottery scratch-off ticket for $10.
I don't know how their system works, how they determine. I don't know what that threshold amount is that they
Well, it had to
say,
be
we're going to send you
$600.
money. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Well, I'm just
But I
curious.
don't know, yes, sir. I really don't know what the level amount is that they determine to send us funds.
No, by reading this, it says the taxpayer's lottery winnings. How did the state know he had that lottery winnings unless it was greater than 600, which automatically?
Well, I'm sure
brought
they
the
have some
1099?
system set up so they're notified of certain winnings.
Right, okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, if no more questions on that one, we do have one more in the amount of $384.98. And this was from a state income tax refund. Again, this taxpayer had no taxes due, and we would like to have your approval to refund this taxpayer.
All right, we have two refund requests before us. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the refund request be granted.
Second.
All right, it's been motion to grant the request. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda would be a personnel report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, pursuant to General Statute 153A 82-1 as amended, as well as the Gates County Personnel Ordinance, Section 4.6, this is a new item that we plan to have on your day meeting agendas to really talk about how the personnel onboarding process is progressing, as well as the disposition of personnel changes on a month-to-month basis. We're required to report this to you, and it's something that will be reported to you, and it'll be based on that template that you see in front of you.
All right. We have departmental reports, and I think that is just a document update. We will not have the individual directors come before us unless we have some that need to come. All right. Let's see the water department. All right. About the county calendar. We don't need to. All right, our next item, agenda item would be to go into public hearing. And we have the first item for public hearing would be a zoning change for Briarwood Forest Products from R1 to C1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
don't we need to hear from Mrs. Pittman, the finance?
We did that earlier, but, okay. She wasn't here, okay.
Yeah, my understanding was the information that was provided FYI, and that my budget amendments can be handled later. If there's something that you all need to discuss.
Okay. All right, well, we kind of changed you on the agenda here, so we will go into public hearing. Are there any discussions before we request a motion to go into public hearing? All right, if none, we'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All right, so motion is second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, we are officially in public hearing. We have a zoning request for Briarwood Forest Products. They're requesting that a plot of land be rezoned from R1 to C1 in the Murchis Mill Pond Commerce Center. You should have that in front of you. Do we have any comments from our citizens? Okay. If there are none, we will entertain a motion to come out of closed public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we're out of public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board? Guess we have a hard time trying to find
I had a couple of questions. I asked John about this on our USDA grants and EDA grants, of when they were actually written, how they were represented to when we were applying for these grants. A broader issue that comes up into that is when I asked our county and former county manager and Gus Simmons to present some data on this, we're in the capital plan for that, where we were going after these grants. Well, I got them to provide me with the data for residential, commercial, etc., and put this in the pro forma for the capital investment proposal. Well, that had a representation of X number of R1 hookups and C1 hookups. At that time, it was based on some numbers to plug into this capital investment proposal that you do almost any kind of projects, of which I had with International Paper and did this all the time. As if you guys recall, that project has negative returns going out almost 20 years to date. This process started even before I was a commissioner. To date, the progress on that is very miscued. There's absolutely hardly any. So there's no reason for the pro forma to actually change from what it was originally projected to be. There's got to be a lot of substantial things come into play before it will ever be positive. So here we are, we've made some representations to in our grants that we're going, and they are, and correct me, John, they will be audited, right?
Yes, sir, they will be.
So here we made these representations that Gates County is on the hook, $2.6 million, clawbacks of $700,000. And that's very concerning to me. If you make these representations as they were made, and you change the matrix of what you put them on, you put yourself in a very credibility problem. I don't want to see that happen. That is never good. When I was at International Paper and in charge of doing capital projects, and you went to your company and you asked them for money, well, you got X amount of dollars, and the pro forma you had productivity and efficiency criterion there. Guess what? You got audited on those to see how well you performed. Well, if you didn't perform very well as what you said you planned, you had this little fudge factor or something like that, guess what happened to you the next time around? It's sort of like your dad giving you $20. Say, okay, Johnny, spend it wisely. Well, I'm supposed to be spending it on my meals and food, clothes, or whatever. Oh, I go out to the ball game, or I go do something else. What do you think happens when I go back to Dad and I say, hey, Dad, I need some more money. I got to buy a pair of shoes or whatever. What do you think he might tell me? And that's the concern that I have. I'm in favor of this. Obviously, I like to see commercial property, but it is a major, major problem to me for the representation that we have already made as a group and as a board in the past. There was two things that this was built around. Obviously, Commerce Park was a big part of it, and I'm not sure because I haven't read the documents, John, so I don't really know. And then there was another issue, but I'm not going to get into that one right this minute, but that came about that I witnessed. I wasn't at the meeting, but I did see a gentleman called me and gave me a little insight into what happened. Well, you listened, but later on I got an opportunity to see what happened. It's very disturbing to me. When I worked for International Paper, I was in a position of sharing confidential information, proprietary type information. I had to sign a paper that if I went to work for anyone within a 2-year span of when I was terminated for International Paper, I left by voluntary or involuntary ways and went to work, I would not share that information. I'd be liable. Well, when you take an oath as a county commissioner, you're doing the same thing as signing that piece of paper. That's very disturbing. A lot of ethics involved. So, a lot of concerns around this issue. But the biggest issue is the representation that has already been made. So, that is part of my concerns with what we're doing here. It's not with R1 to C1, because I think that's good, personally. But I don't want to get caught in a catch-22 here.
All right, anyone else? All right, I think it's a good move as well. From going from R1 to C1, certainly it puts the county in a better position to not be as liable for the clawbacks because commercial is going to bring in jobs. So I think it's a good thing to move forward with it as well. All right, if there's no other discussions, we'll entertain a motion to for the zoning request.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad Johnny shared what he shared in respect to his opinion, and glad we actually got that out on the table. But as he said, and as you stated also, it's going to put us in a better position to address those clawbacks. So it would be a good move for us to approve the rezoning. So at this time, I move that
Let
we...
me ask the question.
Got a motion in process. We'll have a discussion.
At this time, based on what I've heard, I would move that we move forward with this rezoning and approve it.
We have
Second.
There's been motion and second. Any further discussion?
John, did you look at those documents to tell if there was anything within that? Because the pro forma is the only thing I noted, that was the representation that was made on the pro forma.
We have some of the...
That is in conflict.
Let me see if I can't get this microphone where it needs to be. We have some of those documents, and we have looked at them, but there is not a good understanding yet from a legal standpoint of what they all entail. What you've got are some EDA documents, you've got some rural center documents. So to be honest with you, there's not a clear understanding of exactly what that would do.
So is Pitt looking at them?
He is not. Staff is looking at them, and we can certainly get those to Pitt if need be.
I'd like to see us do that before we proceed, that we make sure that we are covered personally. I don't think this is of the essence. I mean, I don't see a lot of activity, so I would definitely like to see that legal aspect before we move forward on doing anything.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to move forward. You ready for the question? You're ready. We will, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
All right.
Nay.
All right, you have 3 to 2. Okay. All right, the next public hearing will be a zoning change request for Mr. Thomas Umflett from R1 to RMH1. We'll entertain a motion to open for public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, we are in public hearing on the discussion of the zone request for Mr. Thomas Umflett from R1 to RMH1.
Commissioner and County Manager, I'm Chuck Brolis, member of the Planning Board. We did vote in favor of this. I will reiterate a statement that Mr. Umflett made at our meeting, that this had taken, I believe he made a comment of 7 years to get to this point, to rezone. This is a classic case of within our county where we were wrong when this came about, and we're trying to make it right in today's framework. This sets the standards, in my opinion, of what else we need to do in the county. At this time, I would strongly ask you to support the Planning Board's decision and their vote, which was unanimous, to rezone this property on behalf of Mr. Umflett.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll entertain a motion to come out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, are there any further discussions?
I don't want to put a fellow commissioner on the spot, but Ms. Hopper served on that board quite a while. I'd like to ask if she had anything she could share with us history-wise.
Certainly, for those of you who are familiar with where this is located in the county, it's on Louisville Island Road. It is a very mixed neighborhood, and Mr. Umflett has taken advantage of the moratorium to rezone several plots of land on both sides of the highway. The initial one was 8 acres, which I believe were 3 lots. The second one was 16 acres, and I don't know how many, I think it was a block of land. Is that correct? I believe. I believe the other one was a block of land that has not been divided into lots. The map is not very clear that we have in our packet. I believe the planning board had a map, a very detailed map from Mr. Felton on that. So it's as Mr. Brothers stated, trying to right a wrong. Okay.
The, on this tract of land, I can't read how actually deep this is. Is that 14, 15 on the side up there at the top?
I think it's 14.
So a third of a mile.
I see 16 point something acres.
16
Yeah,
point.
no, I'm talking about the boundary line here. I'm trying to determine how deep this is and how far it comes up to NC 137 versus the Little Island Road, and how deep it is.
I do not believe it went, I did not see the map because it was for the planning board, but it did not go from road to road, did it? No. Okay.
It was what, Chuck? Lot specific.
On the request here, it has lot specific.
Yeah, I saw that, I'm talking about this,
There were, yeah,
The
two.
big block.
One pin number.
The first two are, the first one with the 5 acres is 3 lots. Then we have another one with, another 3 lots. But then this larger block is not lot specific, I don't think.
all right.
This is the map we have.
Yeah, that is not real clear, because if I'm looking at the boundary lines there,
It just says 16.1.
this is the only one we got.
That's the only one we got.
Oh, I have seen that one that they had on, where they last
Right here, it's a location 240, 232, 224.
This
That would be-
this one's 230. That was 239, 221, 225.
All right,
Same lots. 3 on one side of the road, 5 on the other side of the road. It's still on like 30 acres of land. It's on Little Island Road, on the part where most, it's like 23 mobile homes, and about 6 built houses.
Tommy, is that, and right in front of this map here, is that where the existing trailers are at right here?
Well, that's just one parcel of it.
No, I'm talking about right in front of Janet and Tommy's house, where those are,
Yes, sir.
and then it extends from there to how far to 137?
So it's on Little Island Road.
Right, this,
To
this
Barfield.
back,
That's the plat of land that runs upside Cool Spring Church.
does it go beside of it to the road, or does it go behind it, or
It
what?
goes right up to the side cemetery, right at 137.
So it does
But
encompass
I'm
one,
not using any of that. What I'm using is on Little Island Road.
right. But this block here is the block that goes to 130, all the way to 137.
Well, it's a lot more than that picture shows.
You don't have the vicinity map that you're gonna have. He showed everything that he was asking for, that we had at the planning board that I don't think y'all got.
well, you show total acreage of 16.1 acres for one plot.
That's the last that I had surveyed, and I put a house back there, and I never finished it. The front was across the road on the north side, I think, of the road. The Little Island, there's 9 acres in that plot, I used 3. I went across the road, I had 80 or 90 acres in that plot, I used 3 right on the road, and I could go into a long story about what happened in the back. I was stopped dead in my tracks.
How about the 5 acres?
Pardon me?
How about the 5-acre lot?
5 acre lot.
Well, you're showing a total of 5, it's 16.1. You just talked about, then there's a 5 acre. And yes.
I don't think that on the paper.
I don't think so either.
I've seen the one with the Read the side by side. I don't know where.
All right, this is the 16.1.
Right, that's that one you just had in your hand,
Okay.
Mr. Porter.
Okay. And you've got the 5 acre, which is this one.
Then you give an address.
All right, that would
I
be the
think that's-
3,100, is that
I
100?
think that's, I picked 5 out because it's like 7, 8 acres across the road, and I just put it down as 5, because I have both sides of the road going down Little Island Road, all the way up Cool Spring Church.
Is that 3,100 lane?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then you've got an 8 acre, which is 240 Little Island Road.
Right, that's 240 Little Island. That's on the opposite side. It goes, if I had my big maps, I could show you. I'm well over the 1 acre limit on everything.
Okay. All right. All right, we'll have to,
Can I ask one more question?
sure.
Tommy? The thing that I'm concerned about is the 137 and the 16 acres.
Pardon me?
The 137 and the 16 acres, if it's going to go all the way there, what
No.
are the,
No. I didn't harvest the timber. That's K and Arlen's.
okay,
Their boundary runs right beside me. They run up to the back left-hand side of Cool Spring Church. My land comes right up beside it, goes all the way to 137. It crosses the road on Little Island, goes across, and it goes right up beside the church, right beside the cemetery, and stops at 137.
that's the 16 acres?
Well, it's more than 16 acres. That was cut out to make a lot.
Okay, all right, so this is encompassed inside that parcel is what
Yes,
you're
sir.
telling? Okay, that's good. In other words, the boundary lines of this are, on this 16 acres, are in the middle of that woods?
Right.
Okay.
K and Arlen's on one side, and Mr.,
So this
I can't think of his
this
name.
block that we're looking at right here in itself, that we're talking about, does not actually run up to 137?
No, sir.
Okay,
It's about another 40 acres before you get there.
there you go. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, no problem.
All right, any other discussion? All right, we'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we accept or approve this.
Second.
All right, motion is second that be approved. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll resume about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, the next item on our agenda is item 7, our old business. Consideration of a transportation services contract with Hertford County Department of Social Services for access to and use of the Gates County Interregional Transit System. Ms. Patrice Lassiter. Ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
As per the board, I went back and sat down with the county manager, and we revisited the contract, and any concerns that he had, we took them back. I took them back to Hertford County DSS, and we've since corrected, and we're presenting it again for your consideration.
Could you highlight any of the major changes?
There was a change about notifying them of key positions. I think before it stated that we would notify them prior in writing, and now I think we changed it to just say that we would notify them, but not for their approval. There was also, let's see.
What page would that might be?
It is number.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that's on page 7, key personnel at the top. Yes.
There were also changes, we put a change in there about the cost. Let's see. The cost was broken down in miles, and also, let's see, where is that? That was actually an attachment. On page 8 of 29, we put in there that the cost would be at the $1.25 per mile as long as gas does not exceed $4 a gallon, and how that would be looked at.
So we give a progressive increase as the price of gas goes up.
Yes, that's the. And I think before you also ask for an information about trips taken, and the chart on the first page shows the trips that we went to. Well, I had mine for December and January, and they gave me their January trips.
All right. Are there any other questions?
I have some questions about the program
Okay.
in general. And I see Jeffrey out in the audience, so I don't know if he'll choose to respond to any of these questions, but I want to leave my questions open to him, if I may. Is this some type of reciprocal, something we're doing, or are they, is Hertford County, do they have a program that we're piggybacking on, that we're aware of? And is this something we're doing because they're doing something for us? In principle, I don't see why if this is not some revenue building, for our fund to operate our program. I'm concerned with why we would be entering into this agreement with them. You follow me there, Mr. Chairman? I mean, if it's not building our program for our citizens here, I'm curious why we're entering into it. It sounds like it may have just been a request from them. So just on the basis of, what's driving us to do this. And again, if Jeffrey, if it is enhancing his department also, DSS, I would like to hear from him or you on that question.
Well, let me just say this. I was thinking, and I'm just kind of piggyback on what you were saying. I was thinking that by doing this, it would help us in our expenses. It would bring in a little bit more revenue for the county, thereby offsetting some of the costs that we were incurring. So, you may want to confirm that. That's what I'm thinking, and I think that's what Commissioner Owens is asking.
Yes. They're requesting now, from a need perspective from them, because of there's a new thing going on in the county that
In Hertford County?
it's across the state.
Okay.
Across the state, Medicaid transportation is being looked at differently. They went out maybe a year or two ago, and they started talking about brokering all Medicaid transportation services out to different brokers in the state or whatever. Upon doing that, NCDOT, or public transportation, which is what our funding falls under, they started to counteract. It would cause us to lose revenues the way they were going to provide the service, and it would cause other funding sources like maybe elderly transportation and rural general public transportations to have to pay more because they wouldn't be sharing the cost if they pulled out. So what NCDOT did was they counteracted and they said, if you are going to brokerage Medicaid transportation out, then we want our transportation systems to be able to fight on the same level because we provide services that are, we have certain minimum standards of training, we have certain minimum insurance, we have different things that would cost us more to provide than an average mom and pop transportation system. So upon doing that, Medicaid and the transportation came up with a plan that you have to have the things we have. You have to meet the minimum standards of training. You have to have the $1 million coverage of insurance. You have to, do different things. Upon doing that, Hertford County lost some of the people that they were using to be able to provide the service. So that's why they are coming to us. Now, my reason for considering it is because what the state has been doing back and forth for maybe the last 7 or 8 years is they go back and forth. At some point, they're saying that transportation systems should be regionalized. It should not be just individual county systems, that we should transport across each other's area. We should share the responsibility of providing transportation service. Since the program is pretty much 80% funded by federal, 5% by state, and only 15% by local government, they want us to look at providing a seamless transportation system. So it wouldn't be maybe Hertford County and then Gates County and Pasquotank. All of us would be working together. So my reason for considering it is just that, to kind of show that we are on board with trying to provide the transportation as they're requesting. I also feel that it will help with revenues in a sense that if you're sharing the cost, if say there is a elderly transportation person and there is a rural general public transportation person and there is a Gates County Medicaid person and there's a Hertford County Medicaid person, then what in turn everybody would pay, instead of if we took out Hertford County out of the process, then where they would have paid 33% of the services, now they only have to pay 25%. So in turn, it will make the funding last. For instance, when you sign off on the road grant each year, you sign off that we will provide the transportation throughout the fiscal year, even if we run out of money. Well, each year we run out of money. But we provide the service continually. It's my hope that with all those different players in the game, that it will help to make our dollars to stretch further. And it will help Gates County DSS's dollars to stretch further. And in doing so, it will in turn help Hertford County's dollars to stretch further as well. Now, we would not be, Hertford County does have a transportation system in their county, that represents their county. We would not in any way be doing the services that they do. We won't, we will only be doing the services that they don't. Their system is different from ours. They transport within the counties that they serve. They don't transport to Virginia or different places, which is where they're requesting us to come in and take up their slack, I guess.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? Somewhat.
You answered some of it, yeah.
Okay. What part of it?
Well,
I can't, if you're asking me for an exact dollar figure.
Well, my thinking is, I know that we're going to Hertford County for our citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're going through Hertford County when we go to Greenville.
Mm-hmm.
And so that benefits us. If we're picking up passengers along the way to Greenville, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting they're paying something, then that's going to help our situation.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest concern was, when we met last, was John Doe calls us from Hertford County,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the only call that we have, and we can't, if we sign this document, we can't refuse it, we have to honor it. So we go to Hertford County, and for that one person, but even though there's hospitals there, maybe his appointment is in Suffolk.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to Hertford County to take him to Suffolk. And when you arrive there, he can say, I've got a headache and I've decided not to go. And you can't make him go, and you can't charge him. When I was reading the literature, those are the two things that stuck out in my mind.
And I wouldn't be able to charge him, that's true. But they also have a no-show policy. after they've done that, the first time they're warned, this, verbally, the second time they, I guess, are warned in writing, and after then, their services are suspended or whatever. For our purpose, we do tell them that, there's a $10 no-show fee and that they have a certain amount of days to pay. So we could refuse taking those clients. But,
All right, but anyway, those are the things that,
and I think that wasn't part of your question. You asked about why we didn't charge them more than, I guess.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
And the reason is because we're kind of like a nonprofit service. We're saying that when we put in our expenses at the end of the year, we put in all of the costs of what it cost us, and we have a fully allocated cost program. And once you put that, you establish that that's what your cost is. So to increase the cost or whatever.
And just one comical note.
Okay.
You said you run out of money, but you keep providing services.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How you can do that.
Well, I mean, that's built in, though. That's why the cost is higher. The no-shows, that's why the cost is high. When we first started, I think our rate was 60 cents per mile, and it has increased over the years. People not going, different things like that, that does increase your cost. Running out of money and providing the continual service, because there's some years that we might run out of one funding source, but we may make money off another contract. For instance, like not all contracts pay us by the mile. Like for Home and Community Block Care Grant, they pay us by the unit, by the trip per se. So sometimes we make money on that, sometimes we lose money, but it kind of balances itself out.
You're doing a good job with the program. Seriously, you're doing a great job with that. It's just this is such a change in the program, has been my concern.
Patrice, on page 8 here, it says anticipated number of units to be provided. Title 19, Medicaid, 2,000 one-way trips. Is that 2,000 one-way, I guess that is inclusive of Gates County
No.
people too? It's
No,
not. So
that's
you're-
just theirs. That's what they are proposing.
But in this particular case, though, what we're saying is, could be like Jack said, it'd be 2,000 trips to Hertford County and then backtrack. Is that what we're saying? But we might have one of our citizens on there also?
Yeah, ideally what would happen is when we're coming back from from Hertford County, when we go over in the morning, we drop off our clients in Hertford County daily. We would pick up their clients and bring them back, and then
So
they
we
would
got
get
a
on.
backup- We got a backup, more or less.
Yes, and we would bring them back to meet our clients. Then they would get on the van and go the other way.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? If there are none, we'll call for the motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this, or pass this. It also states on page 8, that this is something that we talked about, because I'm on her board. This contract is only for 6 months. And we talked about if it did not work properly within that 6 months, that we would cancel it. So we were gonna give it a 6 months trial, and that's one of the things that we were asking for.
Did you make that in the motion, Kenny?
Yes, I'll make it as a motion.
With the 6 months?
With the 6 months, well, it's written here right on page 8.
Actually, it's 3 months now.
Now,
Yeah.
3 months.
So it's a very short period for her to try it.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
All right, any further discussion?
I'll direct my comments to Commissioner Jernigan. When will you be meeting again when Ken's there?
We meet monthly.
Monthly? Okay. Ken, if you would address maybe, I realize it's a short period, and 1 month or maybe 2 months data statistics may not make a difference, but I would like for, if Ken could have something after 60 days to bring back to the board, just so knowing that after 3 months, it's going to be coming back before us, it would give us some time to study it.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
All right. Further discussion? We'll in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Thank you. Okay, the next item, I believe, is the video surveillance policy. Okay.
I believe this policy was approved at the last meeting. However, you asked us to take it to the county attorney, Mr. Godwin, and we did. And I think he came back and said that everything was fine as long as we posted the notices within the vehicles, which we have.
All right. Any discussion? All right. No discussion, we'll call for a motion.
So moved that we do this one.
Is that the way we did it before? Okay, it was accepted the last time pending legal review and acceptance. So I guess the motion would be that we accept the recommendation of legal counsel. If you want to modify that.
I so moved for that one.
All right. All right, it's been motioned second that we accept legal counsel. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you much. Let's see. I believe that's it, I think.
Item number 8.
Okay, item number 8, new business. Consideration of an inclement weather policy regarding provision of transit services. Okay?
Okay, when we initially started transportation, our policy for weather was that we would do whatever Gates County Schools did or whatever. And we operated under that for some years. Think about a year ago, we kind of changed that. We had a couple of complaints that they felt like we should provide some transportation services when the schools were closed or whatever, so we changed it. And we had some little issues, I think, at the last inclement weather situation, that because the weather, I guess, got bad so fast that we kind of got stuck in Smithfield for a few hours and in Elizabeth City for a few hours. So we want to you to consider for us understanding that with the weather policy that we're open as long as county buildings are open, but the vehicles would be at the discretion of myself, the county manager, and emergency management, looking at what the weather situations would be and making a decision for either suspension of services or cancellation of services or some services. So we're coming to you today for you to review this policy to see if you would approve that.
Our county manager, have you been involved in any of this deliberation on this change?
I have, yes, sir, Commissioner. We've looked at this, and what we're trying to do is get a best fit to enable the transit system to flex around the different geographies in which they serve. Oftentimes, in-county, they would be fine. Weather events in Tidewater and western Tidewater may be different, and I think that's what happened in Smithfield the last time. So this gives a little bit of flexibility for the system. It's our intent that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, that we would remain open unless and until the conditions were hazardous to the motoring public and our customers that are on that system. And at that point, we would make a decision to act in the safety of the public that's using GETS to delay or suspend service or to close early for that day, or to suspend certain routes that may be long in duration. The Smithfield route, for instance, is a very long route, and if we feel like the weather is deteriorating, we may suspend that route and continue to maintain services on our local routes that are inside the confines of the county.
My biggest concern on those extended routes, I'll call the Smithfield route an extended route, would be if you did run into a situation where it was unsafe, those people are going to have to be housed. So we would find ourselves putting them in a motel or something, and that, you know, and some of those people may have, you know, or people that have medical conditions or whatever, that could be pretty severe. So I'll ask a question, do we have access to a robocall?
We don't, but what we generally do, we don't leave people without a ride back.
Yeah.
We just tell them, like for Smithfield, we kind of let them know that, okay, the weather is deteriorating here. We would need to change the time, wherein we might have picked them up at 4. If you can come back at 2. Now, if they decided to stay, that would be...
No, what I'm referring to is your driver decides, I'm not driving another foot, is what I'm referring to, and you've got 7 people on there. Just as an example to think of the, you know, what's the worst case scenario would be lodging, having to lodge someone. I was just thinking, you know, I know that your database with your clientele is repetitive, so there might be a possibility that a robocall system with those numbers punched in there
Could be
might be a way to address that.
yeah, they do have Delta Alert.
All right.
um,
Yeah. Mr. Harold, you have a comment you'd like to?
Wide
Thank you.
jurisdiction. That's the
Thank you.
problem there, I think.
All right. I have a question for the county manager. This obviously is different than what our personnel ordinance currently calls for. And if this is approved, we would need to modify somewhat to exclude some of the directions in case of inclement weather for the GITS Transportation Department. In other words, I would think we would want to reference, in other words, this is what county employees do, and then there should be something of a reference or an exception.
We had that discussion, Mr. Chairman, regarding how this fits into the personnel ordinance. This is only affecting the services that the department provides to the public and not the hours worked by the employees. So they would still fall underneath the personnel ordinance. This is only really contemplated for those extended routes into Norfolk and to Smithfield and Elizabeth City, and how we deal with those, as well as our local routes. And this is mainly for the safety of the customers of the GITS system, and really divorced in that mindset from what is going on with county offices. The GITS office would remain open, employees would still be at work there. The routes may be modified to reflect conditions on the ground in Smithfield and Nile White County and those counties in Tidewater.
Okay, so we're saying that when it's different than what is in Gates County, if we're in Gates County, we'll abide by the personnel ordinance.
Well, the offices would be open all the time anyway. It's the service personnel are paid only if worked, so their hours vary as to need. But we're open, even when we're closed, or when the transportation system is not operating, we still are at work. But our offices.
I think I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chairman. Our drivers are county employees?
They are.
Okay. But what you're saying is, I think what the chairman is saying is, that in Gates County, if the weather is inclement and it's determined that they're not going to report to work, you're telling me that your people are still going to report. So
Yes.
they can't go by the current statement, because you're telling your employees not to report, but then you're telling us that they're coming.
No, we're not telling my staff not to report. I'm just saying that we won't operate
But the current
vehicles.
personnel policy does, is what the chairman,
Okay.
I think, is trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly. The personnel ordinance allows us to shut down early, so forth and so on. If you have a driver that's out and they have clients, by this, they can't turn around and says, okay, I've been notified that the offices are going to close, so I'm off, I'm coming in. You know, they've got to abide by this. So,
They never did, when the offices were closed or whatever, because they actually start working way before the office is open, and they work way after the office is closed. So they don't report per se if the office is like, on the last time that we got off at 4. Those drivers didn't get off because they were still on their routes.
We need an exception in the personnel
Yeah, okay.
documentation to reflect that you're doing something different.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing the right thing. It's just a matter of tweaking
Kind
the
of like,
personnel.
I guess, with the drug
Right.
alcohol policy states something about has their own policy. That
exactly, yeah. Something just to link this to the GITS policy, because this is going to be in your policy book.
Yes.
It's not going to be in the personnel ordinance.
Okay, yes.
So if you'll just make a note of that and do that next personnel board meeting. All right, any other discussion? All right, there's no other discussion. We'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept this policy.
Sort of hard to
Word it, isn't it?
I just wondered if everybody was still awake.
I was awake and putting the right words out there.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
all right. It's been motioned to second that we accept the inclement policy for Gates Interregional Transportation System. Any further discussion? I might add that it's been noted by the county manager that they will reference this to the personnel ordinance. So that brings it all together. And all in favor, aye? Aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right. Thank you.
I just want to state that the year surveillance policy, it's already on the agenda for August, because when it's approved in February, we would have a report back in 6 months anyway.
Okay.
That's taken care of.
All right. Okay, the next item on our agenda will be consideration of an amendment or memorandum of agreement with the Gates County Housing Committee. I think that's Mr. Jeffrey Merritt. So,
Commissioners, Mr. Manager, we are currently getting ready to have to end our memorandum of agreement, or coming to the end of our current one with Mr. Chris Couch. We are, as of now, we will have ended our funding with the Community Development Block Grant at the end of February. With this new memorandum of agreement that we're considering with him, we are doing this to try to continue to have him in our position, as well as to consider funding that. That's what we're with this new memorandum of agreement, we are continuing to discuss with him about that, and with our housing committee. What we have now is that he will be administering our urgent repair program. And with this urgent repair program, he'll be doing many administrative duties. As we spoke about previously, he'll be going to the homes, overseeing the construction, overseeing the paperwork, and with things such as that nature. So that is one memorandum of agreement that we are in consideration with him for and continuing to provide us and the committee with those services so that we can execute this grant in its entirety and accurately to those citizens who have been selected for that.
I think just kind of summarize that. Under the $100,000 grant that we had with CDBG, we set up a memorandum of agreement where the county would receive the funds and disperse those funds to the Housing Committee, and the Housing Committee would disperse those funds under a contract basis to the Housing Coordinator. Well, it was specifically set up for that grant, but now that grant is completing in the end of February.
Right.
It's completed, and we have another grant, a URP grant, which is not quite as much, but it has a different administration method. So we need a memorandum of agreement that allows the county to receive the funds and disperse them in a different manner. And this is basically what this new memorandum of agreement does.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I could speak further, we have looked at our committee and we have seen how much funding that we will draw down. When we draw down this funding, it's at the completion of each job. As we did in our last CDBG, we pay Mr. Couch monthly to meet certain benchmarks that we have set in regards, and this is the same way that will be done now during this grant period as well. Instead of in giving him some income, incrementally instead of sporadically as when jobs were completed, because some of these jobs are more extensive in nature than others, and we can only pull down, I think $7,200 is what it would be through the end of the year. And so to let him be paid, with administrative fundings for this grant incrementally instead of sporadically, to have some continuous income for him to be able to work and administer this grant.
Okay, am I understanding you two gentlemen to say that the period for the grant ended in February?
Yes, the CDBG scatter site grant, and that was where Mr. Couch was actually surveying every house that's been determined by the tax department to be poor, to be fair, poor, or very poor. And he has actually found every single one of those houses in that assessment. So he is very thorough in his work. I mean, he even, with the ones that he couldn't find, had to get the latitude and longitude and go put it in the GIS system, and he went out and found it. He's succeeded and gone beyond our expectations and even that of the administrator of that scatter site grant.
Do we still have funds to draw down on that grant?
Not for administrative costs. His costs would have ended in February.
Okay, all of his, okay.
And what the memorandum kind of states today is that we would be able to advance some of those funds to Mr. Couch that we would get back with the administration of this urgent repair grant.
It's like building a house. Contractor completes 25%, you give him, he makes a draw. And this is the same with this situation. When he completes a certain percentage of those 12 units, he doesn't have to complete all of them. And then he would be allowed to draw down a certain percentage.
Ms. Pittman said I also misspoke. It is the capacity building grant, not the scattered site grant, for the record.
Okay.
All right. All right, we have the new memorandum of agreement with the Gates County Housing Committee. We will call for a motion on this. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the memorandum of agreement at this time.
Second.
All right, it's been motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed, nay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consideration of a memorandum of understanding on consolidation of public utilities with the town of Gatesville.
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, this memorandum of understanding is between the county and the town of Gatesville, and it's to explore the possibility of the possible opportunities of consolidation of the county and the town water systems into one public water supply system.
All right. I think this is, we talked about this, and it was probably one of the more reasonable things to do. We tried to consolidate, and the town of Gatesville has been willing to discuss the issue thus far. But in order to move forward, we would need to have some memorandum of understanding. Any discussion?
I just want to make one comment that was made yesterday, Henry, that the town of Gatesville is on a 2-month billing cycle. So that would be a change for the citizens of Gatesville. However, that is the most economical plan for the county. So I would hope that we would move towards that means rather than the other means. This is, I guess, a situation where 20% is better than the 80%.
Okay. Any other comment?
I'd like to remind the whole board that this has been discussed before, and there's a considerable amount of money involved in the repair of the tank, the Gatesville tank, and this definitely needs to be talked about, because the Gatesville tank, in my understanding, is not being used at this time, has not been used in the last couple of years because they've been using county water, and there is going to be a considerable cost to that tank. I still feel like it's going to benefit the citizens of this county by hooking all this together, to get the town members and also the county people.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, no other discussion. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion that we go into this memorandum of agreement.
Understanding.
Understanding.
Okay. All right, been motion is second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Okay, our next item on the agenda will be item 11, consideration of a budget amendment for Phase 2 courthouse feasibility study. Ms. Sandy Pittman. Good morning.
Were you going to discuss the contract before we do the budget amendment, or was that done earlier when I was not in?
Well, we'll do that last. After, we'll do the contract.
Okay, I wasn't here when you
Right.
adjusted the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so we want to go ahead and do the budget amendment.
Right, just the budget
okay.
amendment.
Budget amendment number 38 is to provide the funding for Phase 2 of the Clearscapes contract for the renovations of the old courthouse. The health insurance refund that we received this year was considerably more than what we were expecting, and there were funds available there. And then we also had some funding left over from the board restricted funds that we had used to actually pay for the first phase of this and provide some additional funding to the schools. Now, the second phase of the contract is $36,200, so that's the total amount of this, and it's a reallocation.
All right, before we vote on this, we would ask a member of the Housing Committee if they would come and provide the board with some information as to what the decision of the Housing Committee was in support of going into Phase 2.
You mean the library committee?
Courthouse committee.
Courthouse, did I say library?
Housing.
Housing. Courthouse Committee, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, County Manager, County Commissioners, we see that this project, for the very first time ever, there is a universal agreement to this. Republicans, Democrats, the Historical Society, the Chamber of Commerce is there. We do see that there is a unity with this decision. I would like to go on the record as the officer, secretary of the Old Courthouse Committee, that you gentlemen and ma'am would bring us permission to go into Phase 2 with the Old Courthouse Committee.
All right. That is a recommendation from the Old Courthouse Advisory Committee.
It is a recommendation from the Old Courthouse Advisory Committee.
All right. That's being presented to the board. We're reminded that the board put together the Old Courthouse Advisory Committee to study the possibilities of moving forward and the feasibility of it, and that is what the recommendation is today. So, are there any discussions on the budget amendment as been presented by our finance director? This would cover the cost of moving into Phase 2 of the old courthouse restoration.
Mr. Chairman, I know that you're on that committee. You want to just tell us real quickly, Phase 2 is going to entail, without a whole lot of detail?
Right. Well, what Phase 2 will do, it will begin to finalize, if you will, some of the drawings and some of the in-use designations for the old courthouse. It will begin to explore grant opportunities and prepare for the actual bidding and construction phase of restoring the old courthouse. So this is this stage that will start things moving towards renovation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm also on the Old Courthouse Committee, and we see this as an opportunity to help finalize what we see, how to utilize the courthouse, and also to look into the grant possibilities and make contacts with various agencies to assist us.
And I think that also from this, if you look at this, what Phase 2 is, and there's been some generalities in Phase 1, but Phase 2 actually talks about, and it comes to the bottom line of what the exposure is. And really the tax credits are, in my opinion, are critical to this, and that really more or less puts it down to what your total exposure is going to be. And there's some generalities been out there, but nothing that's like a concrete plan. I don't like spending money for, but sometimes I guess you got to do that, and I'm kind of glad that Sandy found, well, that we've had this refund, and I'm not quite 100% sure where it is, so that our exposure actually does go down. But I think the investment would be there to at least take this step, and I think after this step, obviously, then the rubber hits the road on what the decision becomes.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may just piggyback on what you said, being a part of and an officer of the committee, we do see a unification with the decision-making, and we do see that in our next meeting that we have a feeling of the rubber hitting the road and moving on with the progress thereof. So perhaps in the next county commissioner meeting after the courthouse committee meeting, I'd be able to speak on that if that's need be, or another member, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, it's the next logical step in the process, and I move that we approve this matter.
That would be the budget.
Yes, sir.
All right. It's been motioned that we approve the budget to move into Phase 2. Have a second.
Second.
All right. The motion is second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the second part to this is the contract. All right. It's been brought to my attention, Sandy, I don't know, you may want to help us out here, but we have 3 phases to the old courthouse renovation project. Phase 1, we've just completed, and Phase 2, we approved the budget to move into, but we have to address authorizing Clearscapes to start Phase 2 because we only approved Phase 1 initially. So we're doing it in phases, and we would need to approve the contract or approve that the chairman could sign the contract for Phase 2 with Clearscapes. I think you have that in front of you. Is that? Okay.
Yes, the contract has not changed. It was the same contract that was brought forth before, and you all decided to approve just the first phase. Thought I had my notes. I don't, as to when you all, back in last August is when it was signed. But we decided to just move forward with Phase 1. The contract has not changed. It is the same contract.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Phase 2, contract for Phase 2 with Clearscapes.
Second.
All right, it's been motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you much.
Okay.
All right, the next item on our agenda would be the consideration of a budget amendment for Sunbury School Economic Development Incentives. Ms. Sandy Pittman.
Yes, sir. This is amendment number 36. I apologize for them being out of order. When this Sunbury School property was sold, there was an agreement to provide a cash grant to the buyers for 5 years, and the grant amount is 1/2 of the taxes paid. Somewhere, this did not get included in the budget for this year, so we have to do an amendment to provide that payment. Again, we've used some additional funding out of the health insurance refund to cover it, so the funds are there. We've already received that refund. The money is available, and the budget amendment before you just allocates to spend it to pay this grant. And the amount of, the actual grant amount is $2,928.79.
I might add that, you know, they paid taxes on the Sunbury School, which was twice this amount. I think it was $5,800. Previously, we were getting no taxes. And part of the incentive process was to give them a 50% reimbursement for 5 years. So we're still making some progress. It's, in order to have the building of a better appeal to move, that's what we did. All right, just want to put that out there. Okay, any other comments, discussions? All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I move that we approve the grant. Budget amendment for the grant. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Per our original agreement.
You want to add that?
Yeah, per our original agreement with them.
I'll add that to the motion.
Second.
All right, it's been motion second that we approve the budget amendment for grant reimbursement. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. All right, the next item on our agenda is consideration of a budget amendment for Sunbury Volunteer Fire Department and access roadway funding from North Carolina Department of Transportation.
So this is amendment number 37 in your packet. There was a $25,000 grant received for the Sunbury Volunteer Fire Department to reimburse them for costs for the driveway for their new building. I believe this has been in the works for quite some time. The approval has finally come through, and we just need to budget those pass-through funds that we will receive and pay out to the Volunteer Fire Department.
What's that budget amendment number?
37.
All right. Okay, any discussion on the budget amendment?
Mr. Chairman, just to restate for the camera that it is pass-through. money, dollars in, and we're just being the vehicle to distribute them.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. There are no other discussion. What is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion that we approve the budget amendment for the Sunbury Volunteer Fire Department roadway.
Second?
All right. Are there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. All right, the next item would be the consideration of a budget amendment for equipment replacement at the Cooperative Extension.
Yes, this is amendment number 34 in your packet. The stove in the extension building needed to be replaced earlier this year. Reba identified some funds within her budget in her telephone and postage line, and she's requesting that those funds be reallocated to pay for the stove and the hookups and all the costs associated with that, the total of $1,193.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept budget number 34 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. The next item would be consideration of a budget amendment for grant revenue received as part of the Genesis Grant 2012-2013 by the Cooperative Extension.
Yes, sir. This is amendment number 35 in your packets. And this is a reallocation of funds within the Genesis grant to cover additional personnel costs and travel costs. There are no additional funds. This is simply a reallocation.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept budget number 35 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned second to accept the budget as presented. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, thank you so much. All right, the next item on our agenda will be information provided on animal control ordinance review. Our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Animal control has been a recent issue that has arisen on several occasions, and it was asked that I study the issue of tethering, animal control enforcement, definition of strays, etc. What follows in your packet is a summary of the findings that we found regarding those three things. I'm going to add a fourth thing to it, and I would just call it a root cause analysis of animal control and the direction of that process. There are many communities in this state and others. If you read the pilot, there are things going on north of here in regards to animal tethering. In this packet, you will find that some sample language has been drafted for tethering, and it is presented for your review and consideration. That there are means and methods to deal with animal tethering, and that is provided there on page 1 for your review. In the comprehensive review of tethering as it relates to animal cruelty, I looked at the ordinance as it stands now, sections 314 and 315 specifically, and there are some provisions regarding the general animal cruelty ordinances as they relate to Gates County, and you'll find those on page 2 of that memo in your packet. And I'll read some of those aloud just so we're clear of what they stand now. Section 314.1 clearly states that it shall be unlawful for any person to keep a domestic animal as a pet under inhumane conditions, or to fail to provide proper food and water daily, shelter from the weather, reasonably clean living quarters for such animals, or to fail to provide proper medical attention for sick, diseased, or injured animals, as well as adequate inoculation according to the species of the animal kept. There are enforcement remedies available for nuisance animals, and then there's also another section, section 315, that talks about adequate treatment of animals. as well as the medical attention required. So there are provisions in the ordinance. They don't specifically address tethering, but they do address in a general way the mistreatment, the cruelty of animals, and how that is currently done in the Gates County ordinances. On the third page, you'll find a summary of animal control enforcement with the Sheriff's Department. For the record, the Sheriff's Department is the chief law enforcement officer of the county and is responsible for enforcement of the ordinance. He does an excellent job. He has a very good staff. He is constrained by budgets and the Tri-County Animal Shelter capacity to handle animals that are brought into the system, and when we try to dispose of those, when the sheriff tries to dispose of those animals into a system of care and hopefully adoption, that he's somewhat constrained in his ability to do that. So I want to bring that to your attention, that there are constraints to our animal control system as we have it. That they're primarily space constraints and fiscal constraints related to the funding. Finally, we had concern about stray animals, and you'll find that in this memorandum on page 3, talking about the harboring of strays, and that has arisen recently at a recent board meeting. And I have cited the different areas of the ordinance, sections 201.3 regarding strays. And then the definition of animals and some other things that were asked that we study and evaluate what the definition of an owner-keeper is, what the definition of a stray is. Those can be found respectively in sections 201.11 and 201.16. I'm going to flip over to page 4 of the memorandum, and you can see some additional items on the harboring of strays. But I'm going to move down to the root cause analysis. And I'm just going to discuss with you briefly, if I may, that there are a number of animal control issues that have arisen. Some have arisen following the drafting of this memorandum. The root cause of which is hard to ascertain. There are a lot of things going on here. From a circumspect standpoint, the root cause appears to be that we have an intersect of the public welfare and animal health and welfare coming together. From a tethering standpoint, there are ways in which to strengthen existing tethering language. From a stray standpoint, there's certainly a discretionary and an interpretive call of the enforcement and administrative aspects of the ordinance. There are ways to deal with these issues, but they really entail issues that come together not necessarily in harmony, but oftentimes in conflict between what is good for animal health and welfare and what is good for the general public's health and welfare. So to that end, I want to bring it to your attention that there's a summary of the different items, tethering, strays, enforcement, and the root cause analysis. But in summary of all these issues, they impact a large portion of the community. And without substantial input, changes to the way that we handle animal control in Gates County could be potentially negative to some of the stakeholders that aren't at the table. And after much analysis, I cannot recommend any changes to any of the ordinances without further evaluation and to involve a greater spectrum of the community, if you will, to allow these diverse and different stakeholders a seat at the table. And I would recommend to this board that an ad hoc study committee be formed in that regard to address 3 really summarized issues. One is animal adoption and stewardship of sheltered animals. 2 is the animal cruelty, including tethering. And 3 is our ordinance consistency, with the view that perhaps there are better ways to address some of these issues in the community, that there are stakeholders that need to be involved and that can be valued team members in this process. And without identifying and partnering with these individuals, it is hard to look at this ordinance with one person such as myself, or just from a government standpoint, and we need to involve the private sector and the general public at large. So I present this to you for review and information, and ask for your consideration moving forward.
All right. Heard the report from our request that the county manager look into the animal control issues and how the ordinance may be modified to address some of those issues. And it appears that the recommendation and I agree with it. I think we would need to put together a committee, as we did when we revised the ordinance. We had citizens involved where we could get input, and they could provide information that the board may not be privy to. So I would agree with the county manager. I think we would want to have our clerk advertise in the local paper for members or citizens to volunteer to be a part of this committee in looking at our animal control ordinance to address the issues that have been identified. We'll open for comments and discussions on how we want to go forward.
Mr. Chairman, I would add to your statement about advertising for committee that we get our county manager maybe to ask, maybe that we request an interview process with those applications. If a person submits an application, that they make an appointment with our county manager to be interviewed, to be on that committee. There's a couple of comments that I wrote in my packet was that a lot of these things pertain to a lot of interpretation. What one person who's very sensitive to animal safety and cruelty, they may see as something very gross negligence, where another person may not see it at that level. So we need to make sure that we have a good group of people to sit on this committee, because these animals deserve to be treated well, but we have to make sure that we go through the process with an even temperament across the board. One other thing I noted on here, I remember some time ago that the town of Gatesville you had to have a tag for your dog, and I don't think that's a county-wide thing. I don't even know if it's still being addressed in the town of Gatesville. But it's not. What drew my attention to that was 201.16. I think that would be something that we would want the committee to look at. Do we do that in the future? That would require, most likely would require a fee for tagging your dog. It would let us know where the animals are in the county, Mr. Sheriff, that are on the violent list. I'm sure there's a list out there. It would help him in knowing about that. So that's all I would have to say about that, except that that committee would have to know that our sheriff's department is stretched in their workload and their budget. Whatever they come up with would have to be realistic. And I think that's all I got.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
Well, I see it as a combination problem. I mean, it's another one of those things in our society today that probably is changing. And then another, I guess, is, as John has got in here, is the Tri-County Shelter itself and the capacity in which, how do you go about that so that, I guess, that you control your animal population so that it don't get out of hand to a certain extent. People are passionate about their animals. I'm not really an animal person that much. However, I've been around them all my life, and I applaud those people that do that, because everyone needs companionship. And sometimes people get that from a humane standpoint as well as from an animal standpoint. So you have to appreciate someone else's perspective, and if they choose to do that, they should have those same rights, and the people that or the animals should be treated very humanely. And you do ride around sometimes and you see that things aren't quite happening that way. So I would support any effort that we could kind of change that atmosphere, I guess, a little bit from where it is. I don't know how we do that because it's a difficult problem. Now, the Tri-County shelter thing, we might could address that. You know, that's something that needs to be looked at. How do we improve that situation so that we can handle the workload that's there? And I applaud Ms. Witt from her efforts to get these animals adopted and out there in a home where there are people that take care of the animals and treat them that way. And I look at it as another way, and it's just like individuals that have property or relationships. How do you build on them? How do you treat them? That's important. And changing that perception where people are doing that or trying to do that, goes back to a very serious issue that we have in society today. But the only thing I know that we could do is with the animal shelter, try to improve that situation where we improve our capacity when we have these things and give them more time to get them out in communities or control the animal population. And there again, that's up to the owners to a certain extent, I guess.
Do we have anyone on the Animal Control Board? Any commissioners? Is there a board? Is there a board for that?
I think Mr. Owens was on that board.
Yes, he is.
I was recently appointed to that board, wasn't I?
When is the next meeting?
I haven't been notified, haven't received an email that I'm aware of. Okay. Okay. I'll check that.
That's maybe one. That may be one of the concerns you may want to just investigate.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other comment, Ken?
Well, I have had dogs in the past, and I'm not much of a cat person, but everybody's to their own. And but I commend people that want to see the good for the animals, because we do see animals that are not taken care of, and I don't like that either. I was a dog owner with hunting dogs, and I always think about a story. What happened to me when I had my hunting dogs. I had an uncle, and some of you probably remember Uncle June. Uncle June saw the bucket always half empty. I saw it half full. So we have to go into this with, good thoughts, and like Jack was talking about, one sees things one way, one sees it another. But the things that, some of the things that I've heard about our animal facility does not sound good to me. I think there probably needs to be some type of, I'd say, reconciliation to see exactly what's going on there. And I hope that we get enough people that, that wants to see the good of the dog, but yet don't go overboard with it. When you talk about tethering, like I say, I'm a hunter. And I know some of the bear hunters, they tether their dogs. And it's to keep their dogs from fighting between themselves. It's not, to harm the dog by tethering it. But certainly I think a 10-foot chain is a reasonable, thing. Housing, certainly, when it goes to raining, I get out of the rain. If it's snowing, I try to get out of the snow. So I think a dog or a cat or anything like that certainly should have that option. I know I see a lot of horses stand out in the rain. I see them standing out in the snow. But they still need that shelter there to have that option. I know it's a hard job for our sheriff back there and our deputies, sometimes to go up, well, that looks all right to them, but it didn't to the person that turned them in. So it's a big thing. And I want to see a good selection of people on that board and committee.
Mr. Chairman, I will agree with what my fellow commissioners have already said. Certainly, we need a broad range of people at the table to look at the situation. Concerning the animal shelter, I think in recent reports that they have sent to us, they have tried to improve. They have an area now that is fenced in, so there's a running area. So I think they're in the process of trying to improve, but everything takes time. Once again, none of us want to see any animal cruelty. Certainly the headlines in the paper in Elizabeth City about the dog fighting, none of us are in support of that, and we want to do everything we can to avoid those situations here in this county. And like I say, I think it's a step forward to get the ad hoc committee. Just make sure you have a broad base of people on that.
All right. Thank you all for the comments. And it seems that it is the desire of the board to move forward with assembling a committee to address our animal control ordinance and provide any recommended changes that would help improve this situation for the animals as well as consideration of the general public. So the board should not, or is directed not to operate on consensus. I would ask that we make a motion to direct the county manager and the clerk to advertise in our local media, get the CAL, and request that citizens who would desire to serve on this animal control ordinance revision to sign up through our application process, and the county manager would be integral in providing recommendations for that committee. So I think we would want to do that directive in a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned second that we will move forward with the directive to assemble an animal control ordinance review and recommended modification committee. And we should probably have that back in about 30 days, some results of where we are. And I would think that in about 90 days, we should probably have some type of recommendations for modifications. That would, yes.
What would be your figure?
I would recommend 10.
Make it odd. You got to make it odd.
All right. The sheriff has indicated that a limit would probably be better for this committee. We could amend the motion and go through the process again if that is the pleasure of the board, or we could have a new motion. I think we can just go ahead and make a motion for the committee to be limited. If we want to use the 7, the sheriff is recommended.
Recommendation, of course, on that board, I would request that we have a veterinarian, that we have some medical input, with my office to be involved, and the shelter as a board itself, we might want to consult with as well.
Mr. Chairman, we voted on the other motion?
Yes,
I'd make a second motion addressing this matter, if that would be appropriate. I'd like to move that we request a specific number of 7 to serve on that board.
Okay. And the screening process would be at least one of those members would be a veterinarian, the sheriff department, and the animal shelter.
Representative from the animal shelter.
Right.
I would add that to my motion as well.
All right.
Jack. If I may, sir, if
Why don't we say ex officio?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
yes, all right.
I'm going to amend my motion at the begging of these folks, including my buddy down here to the left. I will amend my motion and only amending the one part from 7 to 9.
All right. Have a motion that the committee be limited to 9 members, including the veterinarian, sheriff, and representative from animal control shelter. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, you all have the directives, and we'll look for that as an agenda item, and probably going to give us some updates at our night meeting as to where we are. All right, next item on our agenda would be the consideration of dates set for the Board of Equalization and Review. And I believe Ms. McGinnis provided us with beginning our ENR review on April the 29th, 2013, time to be determined. We may want to get a little closer, but we generally have to provide a time window where the citizens could come in and be able to provide what their grievances are to the board. So we could wait for the night meeting to set those times, and if you want. And the other recommendation is to be closed on May 20th. I would add that the number of days that we meet will be dependent upon how many requests there are from citizens to have their property values reviewed. So if we put it on the 29th, certainly we could add days as we feel that are necessary in between to address the needs. So we'll put that on the calendar, if you will, the 29th, time to be determined.
And I would suggest that the time be late afternoon.
Somewhere between the 4 o'clock and
4 to 7?
4 to 7. I think we probably need to set up a 4-hour window. We may not need
Yeah.
4 hours,
Yeah.
but certainly we'd have that in case it's needed.
Well, I'm sure we'll set up a time for, construction, and what's to be done with the
Right. We also have to have training each time. So we're going to need probably about an hour for that. And we're going to have a 4-hour window. Certainly that probably should provide the time we need to get that training. All right. Next item on our agenda is consideration of a project ordinance for the historic courthouse renovation. All right.
Hello again.
All right. How are you again?
Okay, this is a project ordinance to allow for the accounting of the donations that have been solicited for the restoration of the old courthouse. At the current time, that's the only thing included in this ordinance, but once Clearscapes has completed Phase 2, if you all decide to move forward with this project, this would be what we would use to account for any funds, grant funding, or anything that we use for this project. So going forward, once we complete Phase 2 of that contract, if we go forward with this project, which I assume we will, everything will run through this project ordinance and will be amended as necessary down the line. But at the current time, you'll see that it only includes the revenue line for donations.
And the board recalls, we did have a article in the paper, letting citizens know that if they wanted to be a part of the renovation process of the old courthouse, that they could provide donations. Those donations are tax exempt, or tax deductible rather, and we would have to establish a budget for that. We have projected that that figure would be at about $250,000, and so those funds would be used to supplement grant funds that would be applied for, and any other revenue that was brought in to support that renovation. Commissioner Hopper, did you have anything other on that?
I think you explained it well, but this is something we felt we needed so that, if you remember, when they made the presentation from Clearscapes, the lady who spoke said we needed skin in the game.
Yes.
And this is kind of so that we would have skin in the game.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we set up this fund to capture all receipts.
I second.
All right, it's been motion second that we approve the adoption of the old courthouse restoration project ordinance. All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed, nay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is consideration of a resolution naming a review officer and deputies to review each plat prior to recordation, subject to North Carolina General Statute 47-30.2. I'm going to turn that over to the county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, pursuant to state statute, a review officer for plats is required. With the resignation of the planning director, the county manager, myself, will assume these duties on an interim basis with deputies as outlined to cover in my absence.
All right. You have before you a resolution appointing the county manager as the review officer in lieu of planning directors, since the planning director is no longer with us. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this resolution that naming the county manager as a review officer and the deputies in his absence, as stated in the memorandum or the resolution.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you. Our next item is consideration of a resolution of support for the Museum of the Albemarle. And we'll turn that over to County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This item was requested by Commissioner Hoffler to show support for continued funding for the Museum of the Albemarle as the state budget is developed in the state budget process.
Any discussion?
I'm currently on the Museum of the Albemarle Board, and this, as all of us know, state monies are tight for, in the cultural resources area, and they were asking, because we are one of the 13 counties served by the Museum of the Albemarle, if we would support that so that they could take that to Raleigh. And certainly the museum does do a lot with our school system. It does provide programs. We had a county day a couple of years ago, so I think it would be in the best interest of the citizens of the Gates County. And it's no funds involved, it's just a resolution in support of the museum.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board?
Well, I hate to say, to ask for it to be approved, but I'm going to ask for it to be approved.
All right. Have a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
All right, it's been motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, thank you. Okay, our last item on the agenda is information regarding roadway concerns in your district. pertaining to the intersection of widening US 13 and existing North Carolina 137. And we'll turn that over to our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This item presents for the board's information a concern from your district on the intersection of the widened US 13, the existing NC 137, as well as some other secondary roads. This item was brought to our attention by Commissioner Hora. There is a concern amongst the residents in his district, some of which have met with me and him respectively, and I believe they've been holding some meetings at the volunteer fire department where this has come up. So what you have before you is a draft correspondence to our elected members of the General Assembly for your review and consideration and general discussion.
All right, we'll open the floor for discussion.
The first thing, I'd like to thank Mr. Johnny Blake Parker for actually taking this initiative to move forward. And as Mr. Rantry stated prior to this, it is a big concern to all of the people in Ewell, and I'm going to make from a mill perspective of 18-wheelers, where I'm at, we're receiving about 20, 25 trucks a day of raw material. Now they're coming, some coming through Gatesville, some from that way. But when they come, they got to leave. So unless they're logging in this vicinity between 13 and here, then you know where they're coming from. Well, not only that, there are residual trucks that are leaving here too, taking residues to Capstone and Roanoke Rapids, going to Plymouth, going to International Paper. So there are a lot of activity, and that's just, I'm talking about Ashton Lewis Lumber Company. Gates Custom Milling, same type situation. So you see these things as well as the regular other 18-wheelers there are. So there are a lot of traffic in this way. And to me, even when it was first presented and these superhighway things, it didn't quite make sense of what they were trying to sell. To me, if you go on US 158 in Murfreesboro, you will see several stoplights. You go on US 17, 4-lane highway, you see several more stoplights. So I don't see where the big deal is of putting a stoplight there with the amount of traffic. From the Winton Bridge to US 137, NC 137, there are roughly 5,700 cars a day. Well, and then if you go up to Tar Heel, it drops off a little bit. But basically, there's 5,700 cars a day that's traveling that corridor. I went to work for many years when the Sandbanks Road became paved. And when it was dirt, I would drive that way. So I had to cross that road every day going to work. My wife did the same thing, headed towards Ahoskie. There are a lot of people in Gates County that work in Hereford County or go on to Ahoskie. So 137 has a lot of traffic. If you remember the late Jesse Lyles, Mr. Lyles, took it upon himself he didn't want the 18-wheelers coming through Gatesville because of the old courthouse, basically, and some other things. Well, a few years ago, there was a design to bypass Gatesville. One was up here at the pharmacy up there coming across by behind Miss Lewis's house, and then the other one's on this side where they were going to do that. So it is a problem, but it's a problem going out on 13. It's a safety problem to me. I don't like going north to go south when you're inconveniencing the citizens of really Gates County. Now, there's a lot of truth to what Earl said about 18-wheelers coming down from Norfolk going south. No question about that. Everybody's in a hurry. It's a fast pace, but safety is another issue too, as well as convenience and efficiency of design. I just think that the stoplight is a whole lot better design than it is to go north to make a U-turn to come south, especially with an 18-wheeler. And The only other option I know without an overpass, and as Earl said, that's high dollar money, you don't do that, is split the road so that you have like a landing strip in between north and southbound, so that you can stage in there and take a left-hand issue to go south. This has been talked about a lot in my community, the fire departments and stuff. The original concern was there, and it was kind of swept away a little bit and wasn't paid attention to. Well, now obviously it becomes high priority because there is something happening. And I'd like to see us get involved like this again and have our Representative Cook, Senator Cook and Representative Mobley involved in this, as well as, and I would solicit Mr. Roundtree if he would be so glad, because he does know a lot of people and contacts in Raleigh and stuff. It's a political game as well as a capital game. But it's something that needs to be done, really needs to be looked at. So Mr. Parker has gone through our community, and I'll start this. This is a list of signatories of, and if you notice at the top of it, of signatories of people that support this project in Ewell. Well, if you read that, from the top of it, it says Gates County residents or citizens. Well, believe me, there are a lot of people that support this that don't live in Gates County, that drive trucks to the mill and other places. People that work in Gates County, 70 people, well, we don't have that many, about 30, half of them coming across the river and from Suffolk too. So there's a lot of support for this, and I just don't think this is a high dollar issue. It's more of a political issue than anything else, and a safety issue to me. So I would hope that we would support this, and I'd like for Mr. Parker to say just a few words, if you would, about this and what really compelled this to really become, again, high priority in our community. And again, I appreciate his efforts, and he spent a lot of time and talked to a lot of people about this. So, John.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and ladies, I'd just like to say that I didn't want to get involved in this, but I've been around here 75 years, and I've lived over there on that road, 137, and all you have to do is go down there any day and just watch the traffic. That's what's going through there, picking up every day. People come to my house, tell me they have to wait 5 and 10 minutes to get on the highway out there as it is now. And just think what it is when you got to wait for more traffic out there and then go down there and make a left turn around and come back. It's not what it should be. When a light can take care of it, everybody knows that. These lights this day and time are not like the old lights used to be. That main road, if the light is like it ought to be a new light, it will stay green. It will only be trickled when somebody's coming out this road. That road's been there for 83 years. People's been able to cross over that road all that 83 years, and all of a sudden you're taking a main road, which is the North Carolina road, and making it into a dead-end road. All the rest of the roads running into that road are secondary roads. You're not considering this the main road. That's a main road. The rest of them are side roads. So all we know is you can't do nothing about it. It's got to come through the state, but we got to go through the channels. That's why I'm here today, and that's why the people of the community asked for a petition to be signed to let you know what's going on, that they do not agree with this stopping and going and running all the way around with $4 gas or better this day and time.
All right. Thank you so much.
I want to add one more thing to that. I might even said it, but on Murfreesboro on 158 where the stoplights are, and then on 17 if you go to South Mills, right down the secondary road there at South Mills, they don't even have a stoplight there, just the intersection of 158 and 17.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Say a word or two about this before we go home.
Yes.
When Kenny and I worked on this thing to start with, when Kenny and the rest of us worked on this thing, the stoplight was one of the things that we discussed a great deal. And that was one of the other options that they didn't really want to talk about. As a matter of fact, Kenny, they didn't want to talk about anything.
They didn't want to talk, period.
They didn't want
And
to
they
talk,
They
period.
didn't like some of the things I said either.
One of the, outside of the fact that we, like I said, I don't want to bring up bones because this is a new lamb to eat here. But we can go, I don't see why, I think as Mr. Parker said, we know the traffic counts. And as I look at it, it is going to be a hard thing to get people off of 137 onto the 4 lanes safely without a stoplight. But somebody, you, the county manager, me, whoever else, it's a hard thing to do. And I want to give you an example. Out here at Eleanor's Crossroad, we had a few deadly wrecks. There was no blinking light there. People have a tendency to come up from Gates more than anywhere else, I guess, run through there. And at one time we had a deadly wreck. Former district attorney, who was then the Superior Court judge, Tom Watts. Tom had to sentence a man to jail because he ran the stop sign. And I was at a meeting and eating dinner with Tom one night, Judge Watts, and he said he hated to, as a judge, he hated mighty bad to sentence that man, but that was the law because the man committed manslaughter and he was convicted here in this courtroom. Well, Tom Watts was a Superior Court judge, and he was trying to get the division engineer, Mr. Atkins, to put a light out there. And the Department of Transportation wouldn't even listen to the Superior Court judge, a man who had been in politics in northeastern North Carolina his whole life. And it wasn't until 1985 that we got a new governor, and we brought him down to Gates County to the Ruitons. And while he was there, a delegation, I told the governor, he said, what's going to happen? I said, well, the first thing they're going to want a blinking light at Eleanor's Crossroad. And he said, well, that ought to be doable. Well, the point I'm trying to say is dealing with these people, we're going to have to never let go. And I guess that Mr. Hoare and I both, I really was upset to some extent with Johnny Hoare because he sort of took my reputation away from me a little bit. But Johnny and I both agree the fact that we got some Rottweiler Bulldog in us. And Johnny likes to quote, I'm assuming it's a quote, but it's a great quote from Jimmy Hunter, that winning is not everything, but the desire to win is. But I'm saying, you know, I've seen it happen here so many times. The reason I'm wasting your time and mine, maybe it sounds like I'm wasting, I don't think so, is we just can't send off a letter or say ask for it. It's not going to happen that way because the bureaucrats that I spoke to, you know, an hour or so back, they got their mind made up. But we do have a new system now. We got new representatives. We got a new Mr. Tater, which I have not met yet. He's a general, former general. And he's maybe will be more receptive. We have a new governor, of course. And so maybe we can go back, Kenny, and get a little bit better understanding if we try. But my point is that we got to work hard on it. And if the people of Gates County want a stoplight, then I think that's the best alternative to me. One thing with Kenny and I and all of us know, they couldn't understand this thing, could they, Kenny? No. They couldn't understand how you, and this is what Kenny and I both preached to them. You take an 18-wheeler out there and you turn right, and then you got to cross a lane of traffic, swing around at 4 or 5 miles an hour to do it. Now, of course, most of the states, intersections, they will widen it out. If you're going to make a left turn, the trucks or the cars would pull out there, and you make it wide enough between the lanes that you pull. It's basically the same thing. All they got to do is widen it out. And you pull out there. When Jack gets ready to go to work, if his car's coming the other way, he just get in the middle and then wait. And that's the way 98% of them are. But they came up with this new thing. But Johnny, get your bulldog teeth out there and the rest of y'all and work on it. And it is possible. I'm not saying it's probable, but it is possible.
All right. Mr. Armstead.
Good afternoon. I don't generally come before you, this crew, too often, but when it's important, I usually come before you. And I think this is a very important thing that, and this thing can be changed. Hertford County just had it happen over there where they building their new courthouse. Your predecessors just put a rubber stamp on what they had hanging on the board instead of going ahead and fight and getting it done ahead of time. Johnny, you stole my thunder because my old friend Jesse Lyles used to tell me, Sam, you help me do anything but help keep the trucks out of Gatesville. Well, Jesse fussed and messed long enough that he got that crowd to finally come down and do a study. And that study proved that it was too dangerous for the trucks to go out of 137 here between the post office and the barber shop. And I don't remember how long ago it was, but they decided that they needed to put a bypass either north or south of town. Now that's only a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone. So y'all need to remind that crowd if it's too dangerous for trucks to go out in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, then what do you need to think about going out in the 50 to 60-mile-an-hour zone, 55-mile to 60-mile-an-hour zone on 13, and trying to turn not a 40-foot truck around that I used to deal with 10 years ago. Now most of the trucks now are 53-foot long. And you're talking truck drivers that's coming down here to Gates Custom Mill and they're here to the Askews board picking up cotton, not familiar with the area. So they wouldn't know how to go out 158 and come on around. And most of you are familiar with how cars run up under trucks down there at, I don't know what to call the service station there, right there beside the truck stop. They always call it the truck stop. We have many vehicles run up under trucks down there from time to time, pulling out in front of them. Gates County, if you don't remember, was in the top 10 in the nation for fatalities at least twice while I worked in this county. Top 10 in the nation per capita for fatalities. Now, it hasn't been there for a while, but if them trucks go down and start turning around, you're going to be back there again. Now, when Dwayne Banks was here, truck day used to be on Tuesday. If you ever bought anything from Brinkley's, if he went there and didn't have it, he said it'll be here on Tuesday. Well, that was no longer true after a few years because after they widened NC 11, all the trucks used to start going down 11, going to Wilmington and Greenville and all those places. And the traffic increased. We started trying to figure out why all of a sudden we started having all these trucks coming through, all these containers. Because they found out, after 11 got opened up and got wider, there was better truck traffic. I mean, better way for them to go. They could go quicker because of the way 11 was designed. So as a board, I encourage you to get a hold of these people, talk to them, hey, let them know the citizens of Gates County want that thing changed. It's easy to get it changed before it's done than to get it undone. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was safe, because if you don't, you're gonna find out people being killed. And tell them that's a bad thing to go to somebody's house and tell them that somebody's lost their loved one. I've done it. And if they don't want to do it, tell them that you can call them and have them to go with them when somebody loses their life and running up on one of these trucks trying to turn around on this roadway, so they know what it feels like. And remind them to look at that study that they done and said it was unsafe for trucks to go out of this little intersection down here in a 20-mile-an-hour zone because they did it themselves. They the ones said it was unsafe from going in a 20-mile-an-hour zone. So what they think is going to be like trying to turn a truck around in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Sam. That's a very good point, and I appreciate you making that because that's one I really hadn't thought about.
All right. Okay. We have the information before us. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, you know, if we don't do anything, we know what we'll get. If we just have to try. I mean, we really do. Because if we sit here and not do anything, it's not going to, anything happen. So we're going to have to try. Apply all the stops we can think of.
I might add that in addition to moving forward, as Commissioner Hopper has recommended, that previously it's been brought to my attention that DOT agreed to put 2 fire hydrants on the opposite side of the highways to help the fire department at DOT cost, and also to put a passable curb at the intersection so that emergency vehicles such as a fire truck and so forth could make a left turn. I think that our correspondence should also include that information and somehow commend them for making some type concession, but the citizens of Gates County feel that that's not enough. Is what I'm hearing, and I think we should add that, and because that may be what they bring back to us if we don't remind them that the citizens are aware of some possible remedy that they have recommended. Yes, Mr. Olmstead. All right, we have the information before us, and also you have comments from citizens. What about retired highway patrolman, Sam Armstead? What is the pleasure of the board in moving forward with this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to add that if it is the pleasure of the board to take this action, I can tell you that they're putting down gas lines approaching that area as we speak. So if it's the pleasure of the board to take this action, it needs to be immediate. It needs to be immediate. And I echo what Sam Armstead said.
Okay. Yes.
I was part of that decision, as always, the other four with the members of the board, when we did not make a decision on that. I want everybody to understand, I've been portrayed as somebody completely against it. And I wasn't. Each of you were sitting in the meeting when we had it at the State Department that day, and the statistics they give us showed us that it was 10 times safer doing this highway intersection than putting a stoplight in. It was 10 times our chance of getting in an accident this way, and that's what they were using. And you were there, Johnny?
That's a true statement.
And all of us were there. And we sat at that table, and when we brought it to the table, I spoke to y'all and told you, and this is the words I used, we can do this. If y'all want to do this, I'm willing to go through it. I said, but if one child gets killed at that intersection, and we have to change, it's on us. If we let them make the decision, it's on them. So just remember that. That's what happened in the meeting. We were sitting at that table there. I did not stop it. I was willing to go all the way with you. But the four of you were willing to sit there too. All four. Remember that. And that was why we done it, because their statistics that they brought to us at that meeting showed us that it was 10 times safer and more, a 10 times better chance to have an accident at that intersection than the highway that they proposed. And all of us let that happen. Right or wrong.
All right, thank you. All right, Board, we've had input from the citizens, and we've had input from the citizens. What further discussions do we need about moving forward? I think, you know, this is not something that you can just jump in your vehicle and go up to Raleigh and demand an audience. You know, I think it's probably something we need to have a county manager to see what the process is and how we can get a meeting with the Department of Transportation. And I think we talked about it a little bit as the young lady that came. She might be a first point of contact and giving the directions on who the specific people to see if we wanted to do that. But I think that's good information to find out what the process is. The county manager has drafted a letter to Senator Cook, Mobley, Representative Mobley, and yeah, I believe it's Mobley and Cook.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't have any problem starting at the top, if we can get down. And if I was a new governor in the state of North Carolina and I was having somebody ask me something like that, I think I'd be pretty receptive to that if I was brand new, especially on the job, from an ear standpoint. So I'd like to see John actually talk to the governor's office and see if we can get an appointment with the governor. He's a businessman, and I think that his influence would be pretty heavy.
All right, yeah, we have a number of things we're throwing out there, but we need to provide some direction on moving forward. I mean, this is given to us for information. If we want to move forward, we need to decide how we want to do that. And if the county manager is going to be instrumental in that, we need to provide direction as a board, not as consensus, but we need to provide specific directions on what we're going to do. I'm going to repeat again, we have a letter in front of us to our representatives and senator. That is one part of the process. It's been recommended also that we try to get an audience with those who can make a decision in this matter. You know, what do we want to do with the letter, and what do we want to do with providing direction to the county manager?
Well, this would be my approaches with the governor's office with those signatures on those sheets of paper that I have given you, and then and I don't know how many of them might have an address other than you were there, but there's a few names on there. Then if you say that the voting population of Eula is about 300, I think that speaks volumes of signatures versus voters there, which it affects that, but it affects so much more than that.
So would you want to make a motion that the county manager contact the governor's office to try to get a meeting with the commissioners and present to them the concerns and possible petitions? Is that something you want to?
Yes, sir. I would make a motion that we have John, a county manager, contact the governor's office, see if we can get up an appointment with him, and in the meantime, send a cover letter with the scan of all of those citizens there that have signed that and said, hey, we're concerned about what's happening in our locality. And I think time is of the essence.
All right, that's with a scan of the petitions and a cover letter?
Yeah, sort of like you're giving to the senator.
Okay.
In lieu of time, are you suggesting that we send an electronic letter?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to provide direction to the county manager? I'll second that motion. Are there any further discussion? All- Yes.
Mr. Chairman, as going along with that, could we not also send the letters to our legislative delegation? I mean, fight it on all fronts.
Well, and I think that could be another motion.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All right, well, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and make another motion that Ms. Mobley and Senator Cook go ahead and be sent these same documents or copies of them.
Okay. All right.
As soon as possible.
I second that motion.
All right, it's been motioned and second that letters be sent to the House of Representatives, Mobley, and well as Senator Cook. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Yeah. Yes.
In that petition, there was a petition out to Wrinkler Hardware. I don't know whether or not that is included in the list that was going to receive. If not, you might want to get that.
This petition can be anybody in the state of North Carolina, anybody in the United States. That's a federal highway right there. Anybody can sign that petition.
All right, well,
After we
yeah.
draw it up,
Yeah.
anybody can sign that petition and use that.
All right. Okay, all right, hold on. I think what was being said was that there was a petition at Brinkley's Hardware. There's a copy. And if that copy is not in this package, we may want to see if we can get a hold of that. Yeah. It's in there, okay. All right. Okay, we have a motion on the floor?
No, sir.
No,
Okay.
we've already voted on that. We're good.
All right, we've got directions on, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to suggest that if necessary, that we as a board agree that we would be willing to go in person to Raleigh or wherever.
All right,
Does that need to be,
well, that, certainly, I would, I'm gonna look at, if my schedule don't prevent it, it would have to be something emergency. I planned it would go, I would ask,
I went the last time, I'll go again.
all right, I ask each commissioner to make a commitment, if you would.
I'm on board. I'm
Yeah.
on board.
I might see that.
The issue that we have, for the purpose of our clerk and county manager, if we all went, we would have to advertise that as a public meeting as well, even though it's not in the county. So, just be mindful that, when that date is set, that we'll have to take those, steps.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Do we need to give latitude to the county manager to add to or rewrite this letter that we've seen based on the discussion we've had today?
Well, I thought it would be good to remind them that they had offered some concessions, but those concessions are not sufficient. I would like to see the letter modified, and what is the pleasure of the board?
I would recommend that the county manager make any changes that he sees necessary to convey the message that was presented here today.
All right. I don't think we don't need to vote on that, but the letter should reflect the discussions that we've had today. All right? All right.
I spoke that to Graham, he talked about what the percentage of the accidents will be at that location. But see, they didn't talk about what it's gonna be when they're gonna make those U-turns, so when you go talk to them, make them understand that as well. They didn't talk about that part of it, they only talk about what it would be there, but they're not talking about
thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, that concludes our commissioners' meeting for March the 6th. We have our citizens' comments at this time. All right, our first citizen comment will come from Graham Twine.
Hello, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, how are y'all today?
All right.
First, I'd like to thank, y'all let me have a chance to speak. I'd like to welcome John Mendenhall as a new county manager. I was proud to be part of the start of the decision, and I'd like to commend the commissioners for hiring him. He was a very, very experienced person for the job. Linda, I'd like to congratulate you for your seat there. As a commissioner, it's the first time I've been to a commissioner meeting. It's pretty interesting. I've been trashed twice today, and I was here, so I don't know what's happened since I've been here. So, anyway, there's a couple of things I'd just like to touch bases on. I touched base on the highway issue a while ago. The other one come up a while ago with the town of Gatesville water system. Don't know how many of y'all understand it, but that was been an issue for a while. Just remember the one thing about it that y'all may not know, and you may already know, there's a lot of asbestos pipe in the old Gatesville water system. There's a big liability there. If you as a county decide to take it on, remember the cost of replacing the asbestos pipe, and just consider that in your decisions on that. The last thing I'd like to discuss is my ethical situation. Evidently, it's been brought to question. I am working with Mr. Al Carey at the Commerce Park a little bit, trying to help him market some property down there to make it happen, to make it go ahead and move forward. I would like to remind each of you that I am a private citizen as of December 1st. I do not indulge any corporate secrets, as Johnny placed it a while ago. When I take an oath of ethics, I keep my ethics. But I appreciate Johnny bringing it, because I've questioned his ethics several times in the last 2 years, and will question them again for the next 2 years. But I would like to remind you that your ethics in the next 2 years will be a very important thing to think about. So as part of that, I also would like to kind of just touch base on what we're doing out there at Commerce Park. To let you know, I've talked to John several times on the situation. I've worked out a presentation to a oil company, possibility of bringing a convenience store gas station into the area. We put a package together and sent it to them. Probably won't come anything of it, because as of yesterday, that oil company has decided they're getting out of the retail business. One of the largest oil companies in the country in retail is getting ready to close their stores down, because there's no money in retail gasoline. The profit margins just aren't there. So you'll see that along the line. But we're also looking for an investor to build a shell building. I have somebody that's interested in building and working on getting a subway. He needs a building to put it in. We're trying to find investors interested in put a shell building up in a strip type mall. He got a franchise awaiting a building. So that's a possibility. The reason of changing the commerce, the backside into residential, we felt like it was more marketable as a commercial, better for the county, better for the sewer system that was out there if it was commercial development. With a 50-acre block of commercial land, we can look for a larger type of industrial or commercial retailer or developer that may be interested in a large piece of property. So that was part of that decision. There wasn't no sinister plot to make me bukus of money, because I'm working with him out of the goodness of my heart. I'm not being paid to help him, because I think it's a good project. I think it's best for Gates County. We've got a lot invested in that. I know, Johnny, you didn't want it to succeed, but I did, and I feel like I'm willing to give an extra to try to help it succeed and move it forward. So that's why I'm here today. I think I'm gonna show up a few more times. Hell, if I get trashed twice in one day, I'm gonna try a little harder. Maybe I need to be a little more often. So y'all have a good day, and thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Ryan.
All right, the next citizen's comment, Reba Holly, our extension agent. Director.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just here to pass out some recognition items for our commissioners. On Monday, we had our 4-H Achievement Night celebration, in which we recognized the efforts of our 4-Hers and volunteers and advocates. It was a very good night, and we always want to recognize our supporters of the program.
Wine bottle.
Thank you, Reba.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
this was for last year's support. So,
thank you.
our new members on the board and county manager will be recognizing next year.
And I was an old 4-H'er.
Yes, you will.
Thank you, ma'am.
So they all different?
You're all the same.
I was just wondering about the name situation.
DJ has ingrained in us.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You better behave, huh?
So I'd like to thank you on behalf of our staff. And last year, we reached over 500 and about 50 youth with 4-H programming with over 140 volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Reba. You do a great job, and we recognize it. Thank you. All right, our last citizen comment will come from Mr. Thomas Hill.
Commissioners, thank you for suffering my comments one more time. I wanted to make a comment about the animal control. I wasn't here when the gentleman made his citizens' comments, but it would certainly be recommendable that this individual could be contacted to be put on this board for the animal control, dealing with the sheriff's department, that type of thing. I also would like to be the first volunteer in that board. Ms. Hendricks, if there is a way of me filling out that paper, I'd greatly appreciate it. You, as the county commissioners, are the legislative body of Gates County. You're also the purse strings. As the head of the legislative body, you five make that decision on where the money goes. Sheriff Webb is the head of the executive branch. If you all have given him the money to do certain things, it is his responsibility to act forth on expressing the laws in a lawful way, or to enforce the law in a lawful way. He has far more resources than his predecessor. And I would ask as a citizen that the enforcement that's on the books to be lawfully enforced. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes. All right, man, have a crowd. Thank you, Cal. All right, that concludes our meeting. We will have our commissioner comments. We'll start with Commissioner Hoffler.
Well, once again, I appreciate all you who have attended. Of course, the session was kind of long, so those of you who have been here the whole time, we certainly congratulate you for that. And as you can see, there's a lot of issues before the county. We try to do our best job to try to learn as much information as we can and try to make wise decisions. Thank you for your input. Continue to contact us, and we continue to listen.
All right.
I'd like to also thank you for the ones that, especially for the ones that have stayed. They got the grit, they stayed. Also, on your way home this afternoon, please drive careful. It's been snowing for about the last hour.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know if there's any amount out there
I
or
think
anything
it's
like
about
that.
stopped, no.
It's about stopped right now. It was, as my Uncle June used to say, it was picking the goose earlier. So certainly drive careful on your way home.
All right, Commissioner Hall?
Appreciate everybody staying here, that stayed to the end, and the ones that didn't stay, even though they were here. There are some serious things that are going on, and I think a lot was accomplished today. It was a good meeting. Some social issues as well as some on this 13 thing. I think that's extremely important, and there's no question. I mean, it's very dear to me, and it's dear to my citizens that I'm listening to. It's also a business concern, and I'll add on what Mr. Braintree said, and that is catfish hunter, and that was one of his statements. It's not, winning is not everything, but the desire to win is. I approach life from that thing. Anytime I'm taking on any kind of problem, I don't like to sit down and be playing like I'm playing cards. I want to have my facts, and I want to make sure that I'm got a pretty good high probability of being successful. No need to do anything if you're not going to do it right or you're going to win, you know. But you also had to be humane in the fact to know that, and that was a very hard thing as I was growing up to learn how to do this, and that's learning how to lose. Because and I'm talking about a sports standpoint, because I played on a lot of successful teams, and I won a lot. I mean, a lot. So it became very difficult when you did lose. But if you continue to play, you will lose. And it's extremely important to have that compassion for your fellow human being. Because when you're feeling good, he's feeling bad. And I always thought about that, and that's one of the best growing pains I ever had, is learning how to do that. And it's very important, and trying to be a good sport. Another thing, another comment, just of wisdom, is not so much what life deals you, but it's how you deal with life. And we have some huge problems that we have to accomplish, and it takes everybody working together to get there. And I've been very happy with what's happened in the last 3-4 months. It's been an entirely different feeling of my perspective. And I think we got an opportunity and some cohesiveness that we're going to get things done. And I hope we make the county proud, and hope we make the citizens proud. Thank you for being here. See you next month. Oh, no. We got a meeting on the 18th.
18th, night meeting. All right, Commissioner Owen.
Okay. You know, we made some zoning changes today, and I pulled this sheet out of the what the planning board works from. And there's 4 points here, and I just want to read it to you because there's a lot of detail that goes into making a zoning change, and it begins with the planning board, and then it comes before us. But you know, when a person comes before the planning board or us to request a change, we're looking at the entire county. Even though that piece of property is right here, it has an address, we're looking at that whole community and the whole county. So I just want to read these 4 statements to you. This is what both of those boards are faced with. How would the requested change be consistent with Gates County's policies for growth and development outlines in the CAMA land use plan? The second point is, how would the request change of zoning be consistent with the property's classification on the future land use map included in the CAMA land use plan? The third one, a little lengthy. What significant neighborhood changes have occurred since the March 5th, 2007 adoptions of the countywide zoning ordinance, making the original zoning inappropriate? We dealt with one of those today. In what way is the land involved unsuitable for the uses permitted under the existing classification? And lastly, how will the requested change of zoning classification serve the public interest? It's the public interest and not the individual interest. So even though an individual comes before these two boards, it's the public interest that has to be addressed. So when you see something that doesn't look just right, keep that in mind, that it's the interest of the overall public. Thank you for coming.
All right. I too want to thank everyone for coming today and being a part of the county government process. As you constantly see, a lot of decisions are made, a lot of changes happen as a result of the decisions we make. And I'm just thankful that I'm able and to be a part of this board to help to try to make things better for Gates County. I do appreciate the respect that the citizens have given. You know, we all have different opinions. No one thinks just alike, but we may not always agree, but we can agree to not disagree. So I'm thankful for the respect that we've shown here today. Also, keep in mind, I like to stay aware of what's going on around in our nation. You know, we're in the process of sequestration. We have a budget issue for the nation that at the end of this month, our congressional leaders are going to have to address. You know, many times those things affect what we do behind this table, and it also affects our day-to-day lives. So stay aware of what's going on, and just keep being who you are. I thank all of you for coming again, and have a great day. All right. Okay, that concludes our meeting. We'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. We can have a brief recess, but we want to have a recess before we go. All right, we need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, .11, A4, A5, and A6.
The motion, I second.
All right. All right. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Closed session. All right. We'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right. We're out of closed session. We have 3 items that we need to initiate action on.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with the action plan that we talked about concerning personnel.
All right. We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
All right. It's been motioned second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay. All right. Our second action from closed session would be a directive to the county manager to follow through with the structure that was discussed in closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we instruct our county manager to do just that. That's my motion.
Second.
It's been motioned second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. In closed session, we discussed an issue with the old courthouse library dealing with the pictures. We need a motion for the county manager to follow through on how to properly secure those.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, motion is second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, that concludes all the items we need to address. If there are no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right.